Leo gritted his teeth, forcing his head up. Tilly, you're getting crazier by the minute. Do you have any idea what you're doing? I'm not crazy. I'm not. Tilly shook her head frantically. I don't need you to remind me. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm about to transform your life form. We're going to leave this world together right now. Everyone who's lost their mind says they're not crazy. Leo scoffed, his gaze fixed on her. Did you really think your little plan was so meticulous, so foolproof? Has it ever occurred to you? Leo stared into her eyes, his smile dripping with sarcasm. That thanks to your arrogance, your soul extraction has already gotten me killed once. Impossible. That's absolutely impossible. Tilly shrieked, her voice echoing with madness. Don't lie to me. You're trying to trick me again. How could I possibly kill you? It's the truth. Why would I need to lie to you about this? Leo's voice was cold steel. A procedure with less than 90% success rate. And you dared to use it on me? You really don't give a damn about me, do you? What? Tilly froze. 90%. How did you know that? Did I tell you? Didn't I just say it? Leo shot back, his patience gone. You already got me killed once. And what was that crap about you performing it personally? So success was the only outcome. That's so ridiculous, it's almost funny. If you suck at something, go back to the drawing board. Get the success rate up to 99% before you come looking for me. And in the future, don't force this kind of half-baked crap on me. This is life and death we're talking about. I've already killed you? What nonsense are you spouting? Tilly refused to believe a word of it. If that's true, then show me proof. Proof? Leo let out a humorless laugh. You'll see it next time. What next time? Tilly was completely lost. Leo had no interest in talking to her anymore. He focused all his energy on moving his limbs. Under the crushing weight of the gravity magic, he channeled a burst of blood magic, managing to drag one arm an inch. Seeing this, Tilly immediately amplified the spell. Still trying to escape. In that instant, Leo felt like every bone in his body was about to be pulverized. But he'd managed to get his hands on a few Etherium crystals. Etched onto their surfaces was the only spell he'd ever managed to learn. To Tilly's astonishment, an exceptionally thick fog suddenly billowed out, quickly swallowing Leo's figure. Not only that, but as the mist spread toward Tilly, a pungent, acrid medicinal smell filled the air. What is this? Tilly was seized by a fit of coughing. Leo, what's in this fog? Leo's cold laughter echoed from within the mist. You're a little unstable right now. I'm just helping you cool off. Tilly corruption level. 90 corruption level. 85 on her character panel. Her corruption level was plummeting at a visible rate. Hidden in the fog, Leo warily observed Tilly's reaction. She was clutching her forehead, her entire body trembling slightly. A flicker of panic finally appeared in her violet eyes. But it wasn't enough. A drastic drop in corruption could temporarily incapacitate a target, just like it had with Helena back at the old mansion. Leo decided to press his advantage. His blood magic coalesced into a swarm of fine red needles. In a flash, they shot toward Tilly like a torrential downpour. It was a technique he and Professor Evelyn had worked on, designed specifically for her. Tilly let out a pained groan. She tried to deflect the surprise attack with a spell, but her consciousness was muddled, her reaction a half-second too slow. The attack riddled her body with tiny cuts, and her corruption level dropped again. Corruption level. 80 corruption level. 75 no, this can't happen. Tilly's eyes flashed wildly. She'd been careless. She'd forgotten Leo had this ability. 4 years ago, it was his serums that had brought her back from the brink of a backlash-induced frenzy, allowing him to take her to that old mansion. While in hindsight, that hadn't been entirely a bad thing. She absolutely could not let it happen again. She wouldn't let him win. Panic was replaced by a crazed determination. Tilly let out a guttural scream of pain. The magic within her surged outward in a violent, uncontrolled torrent. She was sacrificing control of her own power to forcibly regain command of her senses. Have you had your fun? Tilly's savage gaze locked onto Leo. Corruption level. 90 at the same time, an icy gale swept through the room, nearly knocking Leo off his feet. The temperature plummeted, and the mist he'd summoned instantly crystallized in a frost, showering the ground like a fine snow. The suppression serum was useless. She truly was a magical prodigy, able to effortlessly dismantle any trick he could think of. Tilly's chest heaved. Like a reaper, she advanced on Leo one step at a time. Though she looked significantly weakened, even a diminished Tilly was far beyond anything he could handle. After all, the woman before him was arguably the most powerful sorceress of their time. She sneered, a teleportation sigil flashing. The next second, she appeared directly in front of him. Since you won't die willingly, I'll help you along. A long sword glowing with blue light materialized in her hand. Completely out of options, Leo had lost all ability to move. All he could do was offer a weak grin. Tilly, let's not get hasty with the weapons. I surrender. You know how to surrender? Tilly's laugh was cold. Hey, you never know until you try, right? Leo said with a playful smirk. Do I look like the kind of guy who just lies down and waits for the end? Huh, you men are all the same, always pushing my buttons. Wouldn't it have been easier if you'd just done this from the start? With the situation seemingly decided, Tilly's expression finally softened. She shot Leo an irritated look and dismissed the magical blade. Come with me, she huffed, using her magic to march his rigid body toward the operating table. If you're willing to cooperate, I'll make this less painful for you. Gee, thanks so much, Leo said with a hollow laugh. Well, in that case, I'll see you next time. What is this nonsense you keep spouting? Tilly, of course, had no idea what he meant. She snorted and fitted the same helmet from before onto his head. As the anesthetic flowed into his veins, his consciousness began to fog over. It was time to roll the dice again. To be honest, this time, he was kind of hoping she'd succeed. With that thought, Leo's world went black once more. When Leo's consciousness returned, he found himself looking at the world from a bizarre perspective. He was on a massive desk, surrounded by books, magical instruments, and lab equipment that were all equally gigantic. He stared up at them, feeling as if he'd wandered into a land of giants. No, it wasn't that things had gotten bigger. He had gotten smaller. Not only had he shrunk, but he no longer had a body. His faint blue, ethereal form was sealed inside a glass jar, displayed prominently on Tilly's desk like a collector's figurine. It seemed Tilly's soul extraction had finally worked. He'd been converted into a psyche. His feelings were complicated. Was he lucky or incredibly unlucky? As he pondered this, a pair of enormous violet eyes appeared outside the glass, staring at him without blinking. The sight nearly scared his soul out of his non-existent body. Tilly's face was as beautiful as ever. But what if that face took up your entire sky? Leo now understood what megalophobia felt like. Tilly observed the tiny Leo in the jar, an expression of barely suppressed laughter on her face. Why are you so scared? Why don't you get in here and find out? Leo complained. Tilly giggled, picking up the jar. Leo felt the entire world lurch and shake violently. How are you feeling, darling? It's your first day with a new life form. Leo floated a lap around the jar, wiggling his ethereal limbs. Honestly, not great. Leo looked up at her, sighing. I feel strange. There's a sensation I just can't describe. Without a physical body and nerves to provide feedback, his sense of touch, smell, and many others were completely gone. He felt hollow, utterly devoid of even a shred of worldly desire. Tilly smiled and opened the jar, letting Leo's form drift out. You'll have to bear with it for a few more days. Once we get to the new world, I'll forge a new body for you. Can't you do it now? Leo floated in the air for a moment before landing on the floor. No, on the desk. Being a psyche was a strange state of being. He had to concentrate just to keep from phasing through the wooden surface. Nope, Tilly said, shaking her head with a smile. I'm keeping you with me at all times. It hadn't been long since he'd been fighting her with everything he had. Until they reached the new world, Tilly wasn't giving him a single chance to escape. Then why am I so small? Leo looked up at her, exasperated. This perspective was deeply unsettling. It's because your psyche is in a condensed state. You can get bigger if you want, but you might float up to the ceiling or fall deep in the ground. Tilly leaned on the desk, amused as she studied the miniature Leo. He was actually kind of cute like this. Really? Hearing this, Leo immediately wanted to try. He focused, feeling for his body, and attempted to will himself back to his normal size. His blue, ethereal form did indeed grow larger, but its color became fainter and more transparent. Hey, I feel really light. I think I'm about to float away uncontrollably. Don't experiment recklessly. Tilly gently pinched Leo's form between her fingers, forcibly setting him back on the desk. She looked at him with a hint of reproach. If a psyche can't maintain its cohesion, it can dissipate into the air. I almost ended up like that myself once. It took me a long time to learn how to control my body with any proficiency. You shouldn't mess around with it right now. Leo sat on the desk, defeated. I think you just don't want me to escape. Are you angry? Tilly stared at Leo, then, out of curiosity, reached out and poked him with a single finger. Leo was immediately knocked over by the giant digit. What are you doing? Hey, are you playing with me now? Tilly curiously prodded his body, her face alight with excitement and joy. He was so adorable like this, like a little pixie. Even his angry face was cute. Leo finally understood the source of that bizarre, absurd feeling. He was a lab rat, or some kind of small pet. When you were small enough, even a temper tantrum just looked adorable. He stared lifelessly at the wicked giant hand, completely unresponsive to its prodding. Tilly finally stopped. "Are you done playing?" Leo asked, his face a mask of indifference. "I'm done." Actually, she wasn't, but Leo seemed genuinely angry. "If you're done, then let's get on with it," Leo said, looking up at her, utterly fed up. "Hurry up and open the gate. You really have time to be playing with me right now." He was waiting to reload. "Oh, right." Tilly nodded, a little embarrassed. It was all his fault for being so cute as a psyche. She'd almost forgotten what they were supposed to be doing. At that thought, she instinctively glanced toward the entrance. The tremors from outside were growing more distinct. The ghouled creature was about to break in. She really did need to hurry. And so, Tilly placed Leo back in the glass jar and sealed it tightly. She then carefully picked it up, holding it to her chest like a priceless treasure. She walked slowly to the center of the lab, to the very spot where she had witnessed her teacher open the gate. Leo saw her pull a key from her pocket. It was the one she'd taken from his clothes, the gift she had given him long ago. He remembered it clearly. It was old and plain, looking no different from a key to a warehouse door. And yet this thing could open the gate. A ritual circle had already been prepared on the floor where Tilly now stood. In the center lay a box containing the long-preserved flesh of a sea god. To touch him, one must offer something in return. A sacrifice of this magnitude will surely please the Great One. Then we must silently chant his name, and imagine using this key to open a door that should not exist. Leo watched Tilly's every move. He saw her insert the key into the empty air before her, as if performing a scene from a play without props. The sight only deepened the doubt in his mind. There was one question, a very, very important one. This ritual, not overly complicated, but with such incredibly specific conditions. Who had taught it to her? It must have been Ursula. But who taught Ursula? If the ritual was passed down, it meant someone had performed it before and lived to tell the tale. He remembered Ursula's notes mentioning that even the gods had factions, an entity that took pleasure in seeing the corpse of an old god. Could it be from a side that killed the sea god in the first place? The whole thing still fell off. Leo had a gut feeling it wasn't as simple as it seemed. While he was lost in thought, the key in Tilly's hand began to change. The once plain key started to glow faintly, gradually transforming into a silver key covered in intricate patterns. This was what Leo imagined a divine, mystical artifact should look like. Tilly noticed the change as well. Her eyes widened with excitement. She clutched the key and turned it with great effort, as if it were truly inserted into the keyhole of an unseen door. With a triumphant push, Tilly opened the gate. A blinding light enveloped them. Tilly stared at the open portal and eagerly stepped through. The great door slowly closed behind them. And then Tilly and Leo beheld a scene so bizarre, so alien, that it defied description. Countless streams of time and space extended infinitely in all directions from the point where they stood. They were at the edge of creation, witnessing the evolution of all things laid bare before them. "This is incredible." Tilly was so stunned she could only repeat the same words over and over, her voice filled with awe. "A miracle. This is a miracle." "Leo," she cried, ecstatically lifting the glass jar in her arms. "Did you see it? Did you see it? I wasn't lying. It's real. We can leave this world. We can go anywhere we want. I see it. Just calm down." Leo felt like she was about to shake his soul right out of him. Calm, you're right." Tilly hugged the jar tightly, her eyes darting around nervously. She could feel a relentless presence watching her, a bone-chilling, undisguised, and insane killing intent. The hounds, the slayers and purifiers of space-time. Tilly frantically began searching through the infinite timelines. "Leo, where's your home? Find it quickly. Hurry. That thing is watching us." Leo didn't need her to tell him. The moment they'd arrived, he'd been scanning the timelines, searching. To be honest, he was curious if he could actually get home this way. Not that he truly wanted to go back, but it was better to know than not to know. Unfortunately, he hadn't found it. This was clearly a higher dimensional perspective of this world, or rather, the world of Anomaly Containment Sanctuary. The so-called infinite spacetimes looked more like different nodes along the river of time. Some newly born, some thriving, some in ruins. There were countless strange planets and different races, but one thing was certain. There was no Earth and no home for him. When Tilly heard his answer, her face twisted in disbelief. How is that possible? How can your home not be here? Where on earth are you from? I'm from. Leo smiled. A place you could never imagine. You're lying to me? Tilly shook the jar violently. You just don't want to leave. You're still attached to this place. That's why you don't want to go with me. Leo's psyche flickered erratically. I am attached to this place, but I'm also telling you the truth. Tilly's expression darkened. Fine, I'll deal with you later. She quickly scanned their surroundings, her gaze locking onto a patch of space in the deep, dark cosmos that had begun to distort. Seeing her fall silent, Leo looked in the same direction. It was a hound's. This was the first time Leo had seen one. Its form was difficult to describe. It was an abstract existence, without a physical body, like a cluster of tangled, shifting lines. They were only visible because their presence caused the blackness of space to ripple and warp. It was a pack of them. The terrifying image of her teacher's death flashed through Tilly's mind. Fear, like a parasite, clung to her bones, and she began to tremble uncontrollably. Run! We have to run! Tilly searched desperately through the timelines, keeping a terrified eye on the approaching hounds. They're coming. There's no time. There's no time. Tilly could no longer afford to search for Leo's home. She had to pick a world, any world, and descend as fast as possible. As the pack of hounds surged toward them, Tilly grabbed Leo and leaped. This one will have to do. She could only choose the nearest world at random. In the instant they transitioned, Leo was blinded by another flash of searing light. Specks of light stretched into long streaks, trailing behind them as the hounds gave chase. The immense energy fluctuations caused Leo's form in the jar to flicker violently, and he lost consciousness. When he woke up again, he found himself on a barren, reddish-brown wasteland. The glass jar had shattered. His psyche lifted off the ground and floated into the air. He scanned his surroundings. Not far away, he found Tilly's corpse. Just like her teacher's, it had been torn into countless pieces. The massive pools of scarlet blood had long since dried. Their two ethereal forms floated in the air, looking at each other. Tilly blinked. Did I succeed? To the hounds, she was dead, so they had stopped their hunt. Tilly paid no mind to the death of her physical body. She excitedly surveyed their new environment. Leo gazed into the distance. I'm afraid so. It was a desolate world. Other than the reddish-brown, gobi-like desert and the gently rolling mountains in the distance, there was nothing. Not a speck of green, not a single living creature. He had a feeling there wasn't even any oxygen. Only an endless, silent wasteland. This is the world you chose, Leo thought, glancing sardonically at Tilly. Tilly stared at this barren new world and was silent for a moment. Well worth the trip, wouldn't you say? What a beautiful, secluded paradise. Leo's voice dripped with sarcasm as he looked toward the horizon. Even though she had technically succeeded, that didn't stop him from mocking her. It didn't take a genius to figure out this place was completely uninhabitable. Two lost souls, wandering a dead planet? It was a cosmic joke. Leo and Tilly walked side by side across the desolate world. Time seemed to lose all meaning. They didn't know how far they had walked, nor for how long. Without the shackles of a frail, physical body, Leo could, in theory, walk like this forever until the end of time itself. But there was no point. Under the eternal scorching sun, there was only an endless expanse of reddish-brown wasteland and terrifying, ceaseless dust storms. Rocks and sand were the sum total of this world's existence. Desolate. Lonely. This was a world that was already dead. Leo silently glanced at Tilly beside him. Throughout their journey, her initial excitement had faded to silence, and now her eyes were filled with nothing but confusion. Should we keep going? Leo asked. I don't know. Tilly shook her head, hesitating. This isn't what I imagined. This isn't the world I wanted to reach. Don't you get it yet? Leo said with a faint smile. For any planet, the emergence of life is a miracle beyond comprehension. Tilly's eyes silently turned to him. Leo looked out at the barren landscape and sighed. I don't have fond memories of the place we left, either. Humans scrabbling for survival like ants. But, as terrible as that place was compared to this hellhole, it was unbelievably beautiful. The thought of living here until the heat death of the universe filled Leo with an endless emptiness. Compared to this place, even the hateful elder gods started to seem strangely charming. He found himself missing the potato feast from the restaurant near the academy. He even wanted to savor a plate of fish and chips, and he swore he'd never call it bland again. But Tilly started to rationalize. No, even though it's desolate here, we're not alone. I still have you. As long as I can be with you, even if we stay here until the end of time, Until the universe collapses, I'll be happy. Leo looked at her, unconvinced. That's what you think now. It might not be what you think later. Humans are social creatures, a species adept at finding ways to entertain itself. While Tilly's life had been Spartan, she still had basic psychological needs. A world with nothing, not even a single book to pass the time. It wouldn't be long before she grew tired of it. Tilly knew this herself. She fell silent for a long moment. Finally, she sighed with regret. As much as I hate to admit it, there was a small flaw in the plan. I didn't realize the chances of finding a world with life were so low. But it's okay. She tried to focus her psyche, scooping up a handful of sand. Once I gather the basic elements for dark magic, I'll forge new bodies for us. We could travel to other worlds. Sooner or later, we'll find a new world that matches my ideal. You can find it on your own. I'm not coming with you. Leo shrugged, his psyche drifting back the way they came. Leo, what are you doing? Tilly cried out, startled, and quickly gave chase. I'm going home, Leo said without further explanation. No, you can't go back. Tilly's psyche blocked his path. You're not leaving. I won't allow you to leave my side again. Tilly, can you even stop me now? Leo smiled at her. Then, he passed effortlessly through her ethereal form and continued on his way. They were both disembodied psyches. There was nothing she could do to him. You can't leave. Tilly chased after him like a madwoman. She grabbed him in a furious grip, her psyche fluctuating violently, which managed to disrupt Leo's form slightly. Why are you doing this to yourself? Leo glanced at her, willing his own psyche to cohere. His arm dissipated and reformed, freeing him from her grasp. Tilly chased him again. She blocked his path, her form flickering erratically. If that's how it's going to be, then neither of us is leaving. Even as ghosts, I'll be with you. We'll be entangled for all eternity. Don't be dramatic. I'm trying to save you, understand? Leo shot her a look, then gazed out at the desolate horizon. The truth was, this world wasn't entirely devoid of other life, if you could call the hound life. Ever since that pack had followed them through the gate, they had been shadowing them relentlessly. The hounds clearly hadn't anticipated that Leo and Tilly would maintain their consciousness after death, making them a unique case of loose ends. As expected of the eternal hunters of space-time, once they locked onto their prey, they were relentless, never stopping until their mission was complete. But for Leo, this was good news. Leo gave the distant hounds a big middle finger. Leo, what are you doing? Tilly stared at him, confused. Committing suicide, Leo stated calmly. You're already dead. As a psyche, you can't die again. Tilly was even more bewildered. It's a different kind of death. Seeing the enraged hounds swarming toward them, Leo smiled with satisfaction. Sanity was just another kind of health bar. When it hit 0, the game couldn't continue. You were forced to reload. He'd used his trick several times before, and it never failed. As the terrifying, space-distorting entities drew closer, Leo felt a bone-chilling killing intent and a violent tremor in his psyche. Sanity, check in progress. With so many hounds, it wouldn't take many checks before he could say goodbye to this world. Tilly grew tense, frantically pulling at Leo's arm. Leo, don't do this. Get away from them. We're psyches. They can't catch us. Leo's form flickered violently, but he walked toward the oncoming swarm without a shred of hesitation. Tilly, sorry, I can't stay with you this time. He looked back at her and gave her a smile. I'm going to make you give up that obsession. I promise you, we will go back to how things were at the beginning. I'll see you next time. Leo. Tilly stared at him in disbelief. Liar. You big liar. What next time? There is no next time. Do you even know what you're saying? Of course there's a next time, Leo thought, smiling faintly at her. My time rewind is a lot more advanced than your gate. The gate could touch the beginning and end of time, but what happened, happened. But he could return the story to a point just moments before, overriding all tragedy. That way, nothing bad would have ever happened, and the world would be fine. The only one who had to bear the cost was him. He would use his own life to achieve the best possible ending. Sanity check in progress. Sanity check in progress. Leo's world dissolved into darkness, and he once again lost all sensation. Opening his eyes, Leo was back in the sterile white underground laboratory. The shadow over Hegra's save point. Divine Research Institute. Sublevel 2 reloads remaining. March 5th. Tilly paused quizzically in front of the desk. Then, just like the previous 2 times, she dispelled the illusion, and the desk reverted to the small coffer she had left behind. While Tilly was merging with her sealed memory, Leo quietly slipped away. He went to the operating table used for the soul extraction and began rummaging through cabinets and drawers. He quickly found several vials of anesthetic and stuffed them all into his pockets. The potent drugs were specially developed by the Order of Magical Arcanists. Leo figured he had enough to knock out a herd of elephants. By the time he had everything ready, Tilly was still occupied. Leo even had a moment to check on the battle raging outside. He pressed his ear to the wall, listening intently. The mages and the Gould creature were locked in a chaotic brawl. It seemed every available arcanist in the Order had been called in as reinforcements. The sounds of fighting and screaming filled the hallway. The Gould creature sounded like a real handful. Leo thought about its ability to grow stronger by consuming things. He hoped they weren't accidentally leveling up a final boss. That would be a huge pain. Just as he was thinking this, Tilly's confused voice came from behind him. "Leo, what are you doing over there?" Leo froze for a second, then turned to her with a smile. "It's so chaotic out there. I was worried about our safety in here." Tilly could sense the commotion outside. She frowned. "It's that Gould creature. But don't worry," she said with a faint smile. "It can't cause too much trouble. Once we're finished here, I'll deal with it." It seemed Tilly was supremely confident in her own abilities. Leo didn't say anything, just nodded. "All right, then." Tilly took his hand and led him back to where they had been standing. "Aren't you curious about what I just saw?" "Of course I am. Tell me all about it," Leo said, smiling at her. Tilly's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "I don't know why, but I get the feeling you already know everything." Leo just smiled faintly. Of course he knew everything. Tilly scrutinized his expression, feeling that something was increasingly off. "Leo," she began, watching his next move with bewilderment. "Why are you putting on a mask?" "You." Leo stared into her confused violet eyes and suddenly recited an incantation. All the Ethereum crystals he held flashed in unison. Tilly never imagined Leo would dare cast a spell in front of her. For a moment, she was simply stunned. Perhaps it was overconfidence, the inability to imagine he could pose any threat to her, but she hesitated. "Leo, what in the world do you think you're doing?" "You." Suddenly, she was racked by a violent coughing fit. At the same time, her mind grew hazy and dull. Tilly looked around in shock. A thick fog had risen, quickly enveloping both of them. Leo cautiously took a step back, observing the change in her. The moment she realized something was wrong, she tried to cast a spell to disperse the fog, but it was too late. She had already inhaled a high concentration of anesthetic. She furiously searched for Leo within the mist, her body swaying precariously. "Leo, do you know what you're doing?" The more agitated she became, the more of the fog she inhaled. With a heavy thud, Tilly's body collapsed to the floor. Leo emerged from the mist and walked over. He crouched down and poked her cheek. She was completely still, deep in a chemically induced slumber. Leo breathed a sigh of relief. He waved his hand, dispelling the crystal magic he had practiced countless times, the only spell he knew. As the fog cleared, Leo took off his plague doctor mask. He glanced at the corners of the room. In each corner sat an uncapped vial, surrounding Tilly in a circle. It was a carefully laid trap. Tilly thought she was luring him in her web, but she had walked right into Leo's sleep spell. Pulling it off hadn't been easy. With Tilly's level of magical skill and her ridiculously powerful arsenal of artifacts, she could have killed 100 Leos in a single second. But Tilly had underestimated him. She was too confident, too arrogant. In her eyes, a magicless Leo was nothing more than a toy to be played with. She simply couldn't fathom that he could pose even the slightest threat to her. Of course, the most important factor was the reload, the advantage of information. Tilly could never have imagined that the clueless Leo who had just walked in her lab would, in the blink of an eye, know everything. Leo hefted Tilly's slender body and placed her on the operating table. Her brow was slightly furrowed, as if she were having a troubling dream. Leo gently stroked her cheek. Powerless, Tilly's sleeping face was serene, a world away from the murderous, crazed woman she had been moments before. "That's better," Leo said, shaking his head with a smile. He found a comfortable spot and leaned against the side of the table. Then he closed his eyes and tried to doze off. He couldn't afford to fall into a deep sleep. It was still dangerous outside, and he needed to be able to wake up. This was the first time Leo was using the ability he'd gained after containing Ophelia. Once he understood Tilly's entire plan, his counterattack was ready. The Dreamlands, a world constructed from the subconscious, capable of connecting to the dream space of the Elder God Nodens, or creating a localized microversion, can pull designated targets into the Dreamlands. The Dreamlands end upon waking. Warning: the Dreamlands may cause irreversible psychological effects on the subconscious. Use with caution. Do not peer into the true face of the Dreamlands, or you will be subject to a sanity check. Unconsciously, Leo's mind began to drift. In a hazy state, he arrived in a bizarre, kaleidoscopic world. He saw her, at the center of it all, a lost and confused Tilly, searching for something without purpose. Leo took a deep breath and gently tapped her on the shoulder. Tilly spun around. When she saw him, the confusion in her eyes melted away, replaced by a radiant smile. "Leo, I finally found you." She threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Where did you go? I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find you. Where have you been?" Leo gently patted her back, like he was comforting a small child. "Don't cry. You found me, didn't you?" The moment Tilly embraced him, Leo saw the scenery around them change. Flames danced gently in a fireplace, filling the room with a cozy warmth and the faint, familiar scent of medicinal herbs. This was her small wooden cabin by the sea. Leo hadn't designed any of this. It was a projection of Tilly's subconscious. This was the place where she felt safe. This warm reunion was something Tilly had dreamed of for a very long time. She clung to Leo, pouring out all the loneliness and longing she had felt. "I went to so many places, I traveled the whole world, but I couldn't find you anywhere. I thought I'd never see you again." Leo smiled gently, stroking her hair. "But you're seeing me now, aren't you?" Tilly buried her face in his chest, clinging to the moment. "You won't leave again, will you?" "Of course not." Tilly looked up, her face bright with a sweet smile. "Promise me. You have to promise you won't leave again." Seeing Leo nod, Tilly finally let out a breath of relief. "So," she blinked, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Did you miss me while you were gone?" "Of course I did." Tilly jumped with joy like a little girl. "Really? That's wonderful. I can't believe it. Today feels like a dream." She immediately grabbed Leo's hand, her voice urgent with excitement. "Since you're back, I have to take you somewhere amazing. I've been planning it for so long, and now we can finally do it." "Where are we going?" Leo asked. "To a beautiful new world, of course. It could be your home, or somewhere else entirely. But no matter what, we'll be there together, forever." After her excited declaration, she realized Leo wasn't moving. "What's wrong?" Tilly looked back, confused. Leo was staring at her, his expression unreadable. He held her gaze. "If you take me there, we can't be together forever." "Why not?" Tilly's expression immediately darkened. "Because I'll die," Leo said flatly. "What?" Tilly was stunned. She instinctively retorted, How is that possible? You're lying to me, aren't you?" Leo didn't rush to explain, just looked at her calmly. "So, what's your next step?" Tilly paused. Then, without hesitation, she laid out her entire plan. From extracting his psyche to opening the wondrous gate, and finally leaving this world she loathed behind to live happily ever after together. It was all so perfect, as if her dream was just within reach. A look of regret crossed Leo's face. "What if I told you that your plan is full of holes? That it will not only kill the person you love most, but it will also be completely irreversible? Would you still be so determined to go through with it?" Of course, Tilly didn't believe him. Even in this dream, she was unshakably convinced of her plan's perfection. "Stop lying to me. How could you possibly know what will happen?" Her face grew grim. "Are you scared? Are you too afraid to go along with my plan? If so, then don't blame me for what comes next." Leo looked at her, seeing her growing agitation, and sighed internally. She believed in this plan so fervently it bordered on religious faith. In the real world, nothing he could say or do would ever convince her. She would ignore every flaw, rationalizing it away in her mind. She was living in her own world. The only way to change her, then, was to take the bloody, undeniable reality she refused to acknowledge and slam it into her brain. To make her see the error of her ways, to force her to watch the consequences of her actions unfold. Fortunately, this was the Dreamlands. This was his domain. Here, he could make that happen. The powerful which who commanded storms in the outside world was, deep in her own dream, putty in his hands. "All right then, I'll do it," Leo said, looking at Tilly. "Really?" Her expression flipped in an instant, and she was happy again. "Of course. Lead the way," Leo said with a faint smile. The world around them shifted and warped. They took a few steps and found themselves in the sterile white underground laboratory. Leo had recreated the scene perfectly. A person in a dream rarely realizes they are dreaming. Tilly didn't react at all to the bizarre change in scenery. Leo couldn't help but think back to his own time trapped in Ophelia's dreamlands. He had only escaped because he had always harbored a sliver of doubt. It was in his nature. But Tilly was different. She was completely lost in this beautiful dream of their reunion. "Don't worry. The soul extraction technique has been tested countless times. I'm performing it personally. Success is the only outcome. There was again that monumentally self-incriminating line. Tilly suppressed her excitement and anticipation. The fluid from the foreline slowly dripped into Leo's veins. Leo gently closed his eyes. Tilly waited quietly for the procedure to conclude, but gradually she noticed something was wrong. The light on the instrument flickered and died. The extracted psyche dissipated into thin air, and Leo's eyes never opened again. Tilly stood frozen, at a complete loss. The one outcome she had never wanted to consider materialized in her mind. Could it be? Her hand trembled as she reached for Leo's face, checking for breath. Tilly went numb. The world spun. How is this possible? How could it be? Such a simple procedure, one I've practiced countless times. How could it have failed? But Leo's still body was right there in front of her. He was really dead. This was an ending she had never imagined. The beautiful future she had envisioned, every perfect scene she had played out in her mind. It was all over before the first step had even been taken. It was her soul extraction that had killed Leo. He had warned her, but she had been so stubborn. Her obsession had killed him. Like a puppet with its strings cut, Tilly collapsed, slumping bonelessly to the floor. It really failed. What have I done? How could this have happened? Did I really do this? Just then, a cold, emotionless voice echoed in her mind. Yes, you did this. Tilly grabbed her hair, screaming, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. He's dead, right in front of you. And you still don't believe it? Tilly, how long are you going to keep this up? Tilly stared blankly at Leo's corpse. She opened her mouth, wanting to argue, to deny it, but in the end she fell silent. There was no point in arguing anymore. She was the sinner. The scene in the lab played out before Leo's eyes. His voice had now become Tilly's inner monologue. He had recreated that moment, filling in the blanks of what would have happened in that failed timeline. It was all real because it had happened. He was forcing her, in her stubbornness, to face the bloody truth. Tilly lay on the floor in despair as the world around her began to crumble. Everything dissolved into darkness. For her, this was a terrifying nightmare. Her subconscious was on the verge of collapse. She wanted to wake up, but under Leo's control, the scene quickly reformed. He struggled to maintain the crumbling dreamlands. It wasn't time for her to wake up yet. He needed to apply more pressure. This so-called soul extraction is nothing more than a child's game. Tilly, if you couldn't even guarantee his safety, how could you have the heart to force such a procedure on the one you claim to love? Or is it that you don't actually love him at all? Do you only love yourself? Were you so selfishly obsessed with your own dream that you were willing to disregard his life to make it happen? Tilly shook her head frantically, even slapping her own face. Be quiet. That's not what I was thinking at all. Of course I love him. How could I not love him? I was so close. I was just a little bit away from succeeding. I still have so many test subjects. Just give me a little more time. If I can just increase the success rate of the soul extraction a little, this would never have happened. The emotionless voice echoed in her mind again. Is that what you really think? Of course. Tilly trembled, her mind a battlefield of self-doubt. What's happening to me? Am I going mad? Why is my own consciousness accusing me? This has never happened before. Something isn't right. Everything today feels wrong. How did Leo suddenly come back? Why did I bring him here? Tilly tore at her hair, clumps of it falling to the floor. The laboratory shook violently as the dreamlands threatened to collapse once more, until the emotionless voice returned. Fine. If you believe the problem was the success rate, then you have one more chance. Really? Tilly's eyes shot open, filled with a desperate hope. Time rewound and then sped forward. The sterile white laboratory vanished, replaced by a barren, reddish-brown wasteland. Like a film director, Leo fast-forwarded to the next scene. The dead, red planet. Leo and Tilly walked side by side across the desolate world. Tilly stared at the scene before her, dazed. Did I succeed? If you can call this success. Leo looked out at the dead landscape in disappointment. Then I would have rather died back on that island. They walked for an unknown distance, for an unknown time. But here, there was only eternal desolation and loneliness, not a single sign of life. Should we keep going? Leo asked. I don't know. Tilly lowered her head, dejected. Is this what you wanted? Leo scoffed. Is this the beautiful new world you want to take me to? Tilly shook her head violently. No, this isn't what I imagined. This isn't the world I wanted to reach. But most of the universe is just like this. Forget humans. There's not even life. Your grand, painstaking plan is nothing but a joke. Still unwilling to face reality, Tilly tried to argue. But I think it's nice here. It's quiet. And isn't it beautiful? Seeing Leo's sarcastic expression, Tilly quickly took his hand. I know you like livelier places. Do you want to go to a world with lots of people? Leo's laugh was cold. I can accept eloping with you, but what's the difference between a world with nothing and being exiled to the northern ice fields? At least in the ice fields, I could go ice fishing to pass the time. What is there to do here? Count rocks with you for 10,000 years. Tilly squeezed his hand, still desperately trying to explain. Leo, I know. You don't like quiet. You like crowds and excitement. In that case, why don't we make our own people here? Leo's eyes widened. Huh. Tilly's psyche flickered as she shyly lowered her head. We can stay here and have lots and lots of children. We could be the gods of this world, shape it into the ideal I've always dreamed of. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Leo stared at the blushing Tilly and sighed, burying his face in his hand. She was hopeless. You don't like the idea? Tilly could sense his mood and looked down, crestfallen. Is it, you don't want to have children with me? Or you don't like this world? Leo sighed. The latter. Oh, hearing that, Tilly felt a little less hurt. She looked up and asked cautiously, then can we go back and pick another world? Seeing Leo's silent expression, Tilly suddenly remembered something. She said excitedly, take me to your home. It must be a wonderful world. It must be just like I imagined. We can settle down there. Leo looked at her with a half smile. Who told you my home is the kind of world you're imagining? How did you come to that conclusion? Tilly froze. It's not. Leo smiled faintly. That's just your wishful thinking. No, it's not. Tilly clenched her fists. You're lying. You must be lying. And also, she frowned suddenly. How do you know that I know? I just know that you know. Don't ask so many questions. Leo took control, grabbing her hand. Since you want to see it so badly, I'll take you. Just don't regret it. Before Tilly could react, the scene around them shifted abruptly. Her eyes shot wide open. It was a world with a bleak, gray sky, as silent as a tomb. Leo, where is this? Tilly asked, staring at him in shock. Leo put a hand on her shoulder and said nothing, just motioned for her to watch. Tilly grew more confused, having no idea what he was trying to do. But soon, she would witness a scene that would be seared into her memory for the rest of her life. As Tilly and Leo watched, a war began. The shriek of gunfire tore through the air, and the terrifying roar of artillery shook the earth. Tilly covered her ears in terror, but it was useless. The entire world was trembling. Iron birds dove from the sky, bringing fear. Monstrous steel beasts rolled over corpses and through barbed wire, bringing death. The sounds of explosions, screams, and wails blended into a symphony of horror. Desperate soldiers were shredded by a hailstorm of bullets, given no chance to fight back. Tilly stared, utterly shaken. The battlefield was littered with severed limbs and mountains of bodies. The stench of blood and gunpowder was so thick it was unbearable. If hell existed, this was surely it. Do you see now? Leo said calmly. When it comes to killing, we're a lot more efficient on my side. It was time for the little witch to experience a small taste of the shock and awe of his world. Warfare in the industrial age was high-efficiency slaughter, on a scale far beyond anything her world could imagine. Tilly's reaction was just as he'd expected. The witch was not okay. This is your world? Does this kind of war happen all the time? She had recovered slightly from the initial shock, looking at Leo with hesitation. A war on this scale? No, not all the time, Leo said honestly. Oh, that's good. Tilly clutched her chest, breathing a sigh of relief. I know what you're thinking. Leo shot her a mocking look, unwilling to let her off the hook so easily. Don't think for a second that the same thing doesn't happen in other eras. He grabbed her hand again, dragging the terrified Tilly through one brutal war after another. From ancient times to the modern day, from cold steel to thermonuclear weapons, humanity was always killing. He even took her back to a time long past, showing her two primitive men with crude stone tools, bashing each other's brains out. Tilly watched scene after scene in silence. She had nothing left to say, no more arguments to make. Leo watched her quietly. Tilly was still too naive. She might have been the most gifted sorceress in 1,000 years, the great hope of the order. But in reality, she was just a girl who had barely reached adulthood. Honestly, she was less worldly than Professor Evelyn, who was far less powerful. She had buried her head in books for so long, she'd become a fool. Sometime, he really needed to show her what the world was truly like. Tilly now kept her head down, unwilling to look anymore. She was at the absolute depth of despair. Leo's world wasn't just not beautiful, it terrified her. As her dreams shattered so cruelly before her eyes, the light in Tilly's gaze slowly died. Her body swayed, She could barely stand. Leo caught her. Looking at the broken, soulless Tilly, he sighed. But even so, he had to keep going. She couldn't live in her own world anymore. She had to recognize her mistakes. She had to face reality. Steeling his heart, which had just begun to soften, Leo spoke coldly. Do you still want to do it? Are you still going to be so stubborn? He was met with silence. Tilly? Tilly. Her eyes grew dimmer. She let him shake her, as limp as a broken doll. Snap out of it. Leo gripped her fragile shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Tilly stared at him dazedly. Then, as if using the last of her strength, she gave a tragic smile. I wasn't wrong. You were wrong. Leo's anger flared. How could this girl be so obstinate? Tilly's eyes reddened. She looked away, tears streaming down her face. I wasn't wrong. The world is wrong. I wasn't wrong, I wasn't. Still saying you're not wrong? Leo's anger turned to a bitter laugh. Look at yourself. If your teacher saw you like this, how disappointed would she be? At the mention of Ursula, Tilly's expression finally shifted. A look of grief crossed her face, and she began to whisper. My teacher, would she be disappointed? Would she be disappointed? Of course she would. Leo gripped her wrist. Don't believe me? Ask her yourself. The scene changed again. Tilly's eyes widened. She stared in horror at the scene before her. On the sterile white floor lay a pile of mangled, stinking flesh, her teacher's corpse. This was the moment Ursula opened the gate. The day her hope for the world had died completely. No, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see. Tilly clamped her hands over her head, trying to wrench her wrist from Leo's grip. You have to watch. Leo pulled her back, his voice cold and merciless. He had to do this. It was the final step, the most important one. Tilly had to wake up. She couldn't keep making these mistakes. Tilly heard a strange, slithering sound. It was coming from the floor, from her teacher's body. She opened her eyes in terror. The bloody pieces of Ursula's corpse began to writhe and coalesce, gradually reforming into her original shape. She stared at Tilly, her face blank, a scene straight out of a horror movie. Teacher, you're alive. Tilly stared at Ursula, a mixture of terror and joy on her face. As horrifying as she looked, she was still her teacher, one of the only two people in the world she cared about. Teacher. Ursula remained silent, her gaze complex, making Tilly hesitate. Teacher, is there something you want to say to me? Teacher. Ursula finally spoke. She stared at Tilly and let out a long, deep sigh. Disappointed? Tilly, I am so very disappointed in you. Disappointed? It was the last word Tilly ever wanted to hear. She immediately lost control, screaming hysterically. Disappointed? Why are you disappointed? I've done what you couldn't do. I've gone further than you ever did. What right do you have to be disappointed in me? Tilly. Ursula sighed. My child, how have you become even more stubborn than when you were little? This path was always the wrong one. Didn't I tell you that? Involving you in all this was my mistake. If I hadn't chosen you, perhaps you would have lived a simple but happy life. I can't walk with you any further. My only hope now is that you live a good life. But look at yourself, she said, her voice filled with sorrow as she looked at Tilly. Look at this broken, flawed body of yours. It probably won't be long before it rots and dies. Do you even understand what you're doing? Why did you turn yourself into such a pathetic thing? All I ever wanted was for you to live well, to not continue down this path. But you betray my trust. I am so disappointed in you now. Every word from Ursula was a dagger to Tilly's fragile heart. These accusations, full of disappointment, left her with no room to run, no place to hide. Tilly tore at her hair, screaming in agony. I don't want to hear it. Leo, make her go away. I don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it? You go to listen whether you like it or not. Leo held Tilly's wrist in a vice grip, forcing the struggling girl to face Ursula. Tilly couldn't bear to look at her teacher like this. She clamped her hands over her ears, screaming hysterically. I won't listen. I won't listen. But it was useless. Ursula's words still flooded her mind. Ursula sighed, her voice heavy with sorrow. Wake up, Tilly. You can't go on like this. This obsession will only hurt you and the people you care about. It's not too late to admit you're wrong. Things can still be fixed. So, my child, please wake up. After speaking these final words, Ursula's body dissolved into the air like smoke. Tilly stared, lost, at the spot where her teacher had vanished. Did you hear her, Tilly? Leo gripped her shoulders, shaking her limp body. It's time to face reality. You can't keep lying to yourself. Tilly, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Tilly clawed at her hair, feeling as if the entire world were screaming those words at her. The sound was deafening, inescapable. No matter how much she wanted to run, to deceive herself with her old logic, it was impossible now. Every word was an icy knife stabbing in her heart. Was I wrong? Was I really wrong? In that moment, Tilly's psychological defenses shattered. Yes, there was no doubt about it. She was wrong. Her actions had not only disappointed her teacher, they would have killed Leo. The plan was meaningless. Her obsession would destroy everything. She was a joke, an irredeemable fool. Tilly smiled a tragic, desperate smile. She was finally awake, but she was also broken. The Dreamlands underwent a terrifying transformation. The world cracked and crumbled around them. This was, without a doubt, her worst nightmare. Leo watched the rapidly collapsing dreamscape, realizing it was beyond repair this time. They were about to wake up. Tilly. What shocked him wasn't that she was breaking free from the dream, but the change in her. The light in Tilly's eyes was gone. Those once mysterious, vibrant violet eyes were now completely hollow. She sat slumped on the ground, motionless, like a discarded marionette. The Dreamlands imploded. Leo's eyes shot open. The moment he awoke, he looked toward Tilly on the operating bed. She was sitting there rigidly, just as she had been in the dream, a lifeless doll. At the same time, a terrifying power erupted from her body, sweeping through every corner of the room like a tsunami. Before Leo could even touch her, he was blasted off his feet. He felt like a grain of sand in a tidal wave, slammed violently against the far wall. The entire underground laboratory trembled violently. Tilly's power tore through everything in its path. Desks and instruments disintegrated into dust. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling and floor, and entire walls collapsed. Coughing in the thick, rolling dust, Leo struggled to lift his head. Ahead of him, at the epicenter of the power, Tilly remained perfectly still. Pushing against the terrifying force, Leo got to his feet. He took one step, then another, tried to get back to her. But just then, with the laboratory walls breached, the sound from outside flooded in. What's going on? Tilly, Vice Director. The Vice Director is over there. It was the voices of the Arcanists from outside. Leo gave a pained smile, his gaze shifting back to Tilly. A blinding blue light enveloped her. A torrent of raging magic was brewing, so intense that space itself was beginning to warp. That first wave had just been a prelude. He was screwed. He'd pushed too hard and created a final boss. A look of terror crossed Helena's face. Has she gone insane? What is she doing? Tilly. Elder Marjorie stared in disbelief. This is bad. Her magic is out of control. Elder Rollins's eyes widened, and he immediately scrambled backward. Don't enter the lab. Get out. Everyone, get out of here, he roared, directing the other mages. They retreated in a panic, but then, a scene of absolute despair unfolded before them. The massive, ever-present body of the Gould creature appeared behind them. Having consumed who knows how many more mages, its body was several times larger than before. Bloated chunks of flesh piled up in the hallway, nearly blocking it completely. Consume. The creature let out its inhuman, grating cry as countless tentacles surged into the room. Several unlucky mages screamed. Caught between two threats, the remaining Arcanists' faces grew pale with despair. Seeing the situation, Elder Marjorie looked at Elder Rollins. We have to wake Tilly up first. Otherwise, no one gets out of here alive. Rollins knew that, of course, but he didn't dare risk getting close to her. Marjorie shot him a disgusted look, then flew toward Tilly without a moment's hesitation. Tilly, wake up. The Gould creature has broken in. Tilly's hollow eyes shifted toward her. Seeing a reaction, Marjorie grew excited, flying even faster. Tilly, the order comes first. Help me deal with the creature. Otherwise, our people. Tilly had indeed reacted, but as Marjorie drew closer, the smile on the elder's face froze. Because the raging energy, an energy of pure annihilation, was finally unleashed. Elder Marjorie was instantly torn to shreds. The other Arcanists had no time to react before they were caught in the blast, erupting into clouds of red mist in the air. The Gould creature had just charged into the lab, eager to consume a powerful sorceress like Tilly. But when the wave of energy hit it, it let out a bizarre shriek of pain. Its massive body was as fragile as paper. Its limbs were torn apart, its flesh disintegrated, revealing the grotesque bones beneath. On its mangled face, an emotion that could only be called fear appeared. And then, the Gould creature turned and ran for its life. It didn't even look back. Leo watched this slightly comical scene unfold, then looked back at Tilly with a sense of helplessness. The wave of energy was almost upon him. In another second, he would be torn apart just like the other mages. Terrified, Helena wrapped all of her tentacles around Leo, her entire body trembling. Leo gently stroked her head, waiting with her for the end. But the raging energy suddenly stopped. Leo looked at Tilly in surprise. Her hollow eyes were staring blankly at him. Then Tilly slowly closed her eyes, and her body went limp. The magical torrent that was about to annihilate everything vanished. The world fell silent. Brother. Helena opened her eyes, confused, looking for Leo. She thought she was already dead. Are we in heaven? Huh? Why is heaven so run down? That's not what the sisters at the church said. Leo rubbed her head, gently loosening the tentacles wrapped around him. We're not dead, and this isn't heaven. He pushed aside rubble and debris, making his way toward Tilly. Helena followed behind him, still confused. Leo finally reached her. He saw that Tilly's body was like a withered flower, completely devoid of life. The little witch was dead. He had driven her to it. Chapter 200. Staring at the silent, still body of Tilly, Leo didn't know how to describe what he was feeling. He reached out to touch her withered form, but his hand stopped mid-air, trembled, and fell back to his side. His eyes searched the room until he saw it. Tilly's psyche. The ethereal form that should have been immortal was now just a dim speck of light, so faint it was barely visible. Leo tried calling out to it, but he felt no emotion from it, nothing that could be called a soul. This version of Tilly was as good as dead. Leo sank to the floor, defeated. He finally understood why he could never change her obsessive mind. Because that obsession was the only thing keeping her alive. The plan itself had become the most important, most anticipated thing in her life. It was a sole purpose for which she burned, and he had ruthlessly destroyed it. After shattering her every illusion, Tilly had lost even the will to live. He had killed her. He had never felt so powerless. A part of him wanted to just give up. There was no persuading her, no matter what he did. How could a human being be so stubborn? Tilly was driving him insane. Brother, the little witch, Helena was still oblivious, staring blankly from Tilly's corpse to Leo, at a complete loss for words. Helena. Leo gave a tragic smile. Have you ever had a dream? The kind of dream you'd give your life to achieve. A dream? Helena shook her head. I don't know, but if you mean something I'd do anything to achieve. She looked at the broken Leo on the floor, a smile blooming in her ocean blue eyes. That would be staying with you forever, brother. And what if I wanted to change your mind about that? Leo asked immediately. Helena's face tensed. Brother, are you leaving me? She rushed toward him, a murderous look on her face. I won't let you. I waited so long for you to come back. You're not allowed to leave. Or else I'll. Leo couldn't help but let out a weary chuckle, quickly trying to calm her down. Relax. I'm not leaving you. It was just a hypothetical. He wanted to change Tilly's mind, but it seemed to be an impossible task. Leo grabbed his hair in frustration, just as Tilly had done, pulling at it so hard he felt like he might tear it out. Brother, don't do that. What's wrong? Helena grabbed his hands, trying to stop him from going bald. How do I change it? How the hell do I change it? Leo was on the verge of a breakdown. Brother, change what? What are you trying to change? Helena was getting more and more scared. She had never seen her brother like this. In the past, no matter the crisis, he always found a way. He would casually call her over, say a few cryptic things, and the world would be saved, just like what had happened in New Haven. Brother. Helena clung to his arm, so worried he would hurt himself that she wrapped her tentacles tightly around him. Please stop. What is it? What do you have to change? You're so upset. Why not change it? Brother, please stop this. Leo's head snapped up. What did you say? His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at her. Helena flinched, taking a step back. Did I say something wrong, brother? I'm sorry. No, you didn't. You didn't say anything wrong. Leo grabbed her hands, his face ecstatic. Say it again. What you just said. Repeat it for me. Huh? Helena was stunned. Why just said? Why just said? She opened her mouth, confused. Brother, please stop this. Not that. The sentence before that. Leo roared. His grip was so tight it hurt her wrist. Staring at the crazed look in his eyes, Helena felt like she was the one going insane. The sentence before, she said, terrified. Why not just not change it? A brilliant light sparked in Leo's eyes. Don't change it. Just don't change it. It was like a revelation. He was so excited he could have jumped to his feet. That's right. When dealing with someone as stubborn as a mule, what's the point in trying to reason with her? No point. Absolutely no point. That goddamn obsessive is driving me crazy. Ha ha. I'm not changing her. There's no need to change her at all. I'm going to build a beautiful new world with her. Helena was now convinced her brother had truly lost his mind. One moment he was laughing maniacally, the next he was squatting down, deep in thought, muttering to himself. He was scarier than any of the crazed supernaturals they had met before. When we get back, maybe I should take him to Bedlam Asylum for a follow-up. Helena nodded to herself. She would visit him regularly. She seemed to recall the director of that asylum had some connection to that annoying white-haired woman. Ugh. In that case, she would have to swallow her pride and beg for her help. Brother. With that thought, Helena stepped forward and took Leo's hand. Let's go. Go. Leo looked at her. Go where? To see a doctor. Brother, you've gone mad, Helena said with a serious expression. I've gone mad. Leo looked at her, baffled. I'm not mad. How could I be mad? You'd go mad before I would. Everyone who's lost their mind says they're not mad, Helena replied matter-of-factly. Ha, what are you talking about? How could I possibly be mad? Leo roared with laughter. Helena watched him silently, her conviction growing stronger. Yep, her brother was definitely insane. As one laughed, and the other stood in silence, a loud rumbling sound suddenly echoed from outside the laboratory. The sound shattered Leo's train of thought. He turned to look. In that violent magical torrent, every Arcanist except for him and Helena had died. But the ghoul creature was still alive. It had escaped at the first sign of trouble. And now, the cunning monster had returned. As the president scanned the carnage, confirming that every member of the Order of Magical Arcanists was dead, the behemoth let out a grating, monstrous shriek. It seemed agitated, excited. The ground trembled as the creature lumbered closer. Helena looked at Leo, her voice tight with panic. Leo, what do we do? That thing is back. Leo lifted his head, his expression a blank mask as he stared at it. A magical halo shimmered around the president's colossal body, its limbs and tentacles all raised high, poised to strike. Leo gently steadied Helena's rigid body. Don't be afraid, he soothed. Then, under her confused gaze, he slowly drew the revolver. Time stopped. The story reset. Chapter 3. The Shadow over Hegra's Save Point. Divine Research Institute. Sublevel 2 reloads remaining. 2 out of 5. Once again, Leo found himself back in the sterile white lobby of the research facility. He watched Tilly, his expression complex, as she stood absorbed in the memories of his psychic imprint. In this moment, the future had not yet happened. Leo let out a long, heavy sigh. It was impossible, utterly impossible. Any attempt to forcibly change her mind was meaningless. It would only lead to a desperate, self-destructive end. He was ready to give up. Almost. But Helena's words from moments ago had been a lightning strike, a sudden, blinding epiphany. Did he really have to change her mind? Maybe not. Was Tilly's thinking naive? Perhaps. But hadn't there been a time when a younger, more idealistic Leo Sterling had dreamed of a better world? The rebellious, world-changing teenager he used to be had also wanted to tear it all down and build something new. It was only after life had sanded down his edges that he'd become the cynical, pragmatic man he was today, the very kind of person his younger self would have despised. But I'm here now, he thought. I'm the protagonist of this world. No doubt about it. Faced with this dark, hopeless reality, this world destined for ruin, maybe he could actually do something. Change something. During his first run, he treated this all as a game, a diversion. The tagline, pierce through the fog of mystery and save the world with your companions, had just been marketing fluff. After all, what game protagonist wasn't supposed to save the world? But now he was physically here. He was part of this world. The responsibility of saving the world might actually fall on his shoulders. He couldn't just drift along anymore. He wasn't the same terrified human trying to dodge a psycho girlfriend's knife. He had power now. He was an ascendant, one whose potential had no ceiling. So to hell with it. I'm really going to save the world. The outer gods? The great old ones? The fact that the fundamental logic of the universe was already corrupted? They could all go to hell. He'd show them what real plot armor looked like. Leo felt a fire ignite in his veins. He wasn't just doing this for himself anymore. He was doing it for the people he cared about. He was doing it so he could enjoy a peaceful afternoon with some damn fish and chips. He was fired up. Of course, after the initial rush, he had to cool down. He couldn't get ahead of himself. The immediate problem was Tilly. That was the key. Even thinking in the most pragmatic, utilitarian terms, containing the witch was essential. The powerful magical aptitude he would gain from it was a prerequisite for any of his grander ambitions. And beyond that, he truly didn't want Tilly to die. He didn't want her to keep torturing herself. She was driving him insane. That was Tilly, all right. The ultimate obsessive. She didn't just drive herself mad. She took everyone around her down with her. So a change was still necessary. But after his previous failures, Leo was going to try something smaller. A slight adjustment. While Tilly was still merging with his psychic imprint, Leo once again gathered the anesthetic vials. He carefully arranged them around her, setting a makeshift, soporific trap. Then he waited. Huh? Leo, what are you spacing out about? Tilly, her memories restored, asked as she walked toward him, her expression quizzical. She watched his strange preparations, her violet eyes clouding with more confusion. Leo, why are you putting on that mask? What are you? A fine mist rapidly filled the air. Tilly's body went limp, and she crumpled to the floor. Leo rushed forward and scooped her fragile form into his arms. He looked down at her pale, unconscious face and glared. This girl, stubborn as a mule, she was going to be the death of him. Later, he vowed, he would make her pay for this. He was so furious he couldn't even wait. He rolled up his sleeves, ready to... He paused, his hands hovering over her. His anger was a raging fire, but it was banked by a wave of exhaustion and despair. He wanted to throttle her, to shake some sense into her. Instead, his hands trembling slightly, he gently placed her on the surgical table. With everything in place, Leo entered the dreamlands once more. It was after class at Blackwood Academy. Leo sat by the window, gazing quietly at the scenery outside, his thoughts drifting. The city of steam was as bustling and noisy as ever. A dream too real can make you forget the line between fiction and reality, even for its creator. Soft footsteps approached. A crisp, pleasant voice sounded by his ear. Always spacing out. What are you thinking about now? Leo turned. Tilly, dressed in her school uniform, was smiling at him. She playfully poked his cheek. It's one thing to zone out during class, but why aren't you eager to leave now that school's over? What's on your mind? Share it with me. Leo blinked, a look of innocence on his face. I was thinking about you. Tilly froze, her cheeks flushing as she glanced around the classroom. What nonsense are you spouting now? We're in class. But I really was thinking about you, Leo said honestly. This old dreamscape is for you. Who else would I be thinking about? Tilly lowered her head, her face crimson. You big liar. All you know how to say are sweet nothings. Leo's gaze turned mischievous. Oh, are you blushing? Let me see. Tilly looked up just as a handsome face loomed large before her. Ah, she scrambled backward. You? It's bad enough when you do this at home, but at school too. Stop it. The other students are watching. Leo glanced around with a smile. Why do you care about them? They're just NPCs. NPCs? Tilly looked up in confusion, only to find Leo leaning in even closer, almost to the point of kissing her. Don't. Tilly scrambled away, putting distance between them. An annoyed pout formed on her face. Stop messing around. We have to go home. Professor Evelyn is visiting New Haven, and we need to prepare dinner to welcome her tonight. Seeing her face, so red it was practically a ripe tomato, Leo's grin only widened. But he stopped teasing her. The truth was, despite the fearsome reputation she had on the outside, the dreaded calamity, which, if you peeled back that hardened shell, the real Tilly was just a sensitive, ordinary girl. She was introverted, withdrawn, and didn't quite know how to handle people. His forwardness often left her flustered. It was just that her brain was still as stubborn as a 500-pound block of lead. Not long ago, she told him she was going to kill the incompetent professor at the front of the class and tie a rock to his body before dumping him in the river. The classroom had nearly erupted into a brawl, and Leo's dreamlands had almost ended prematurely. There was no helping it. The girl was stubbornly logical. Getting her to change her mind was like moving a mountain. That hard shell of hers had an automatic defense mechanism that would instantly envelop her, leaving him helpless. So, Leo decided to try a gentler approach. She wasn't like Ophelia. Their personalities were polar opposites. Perhaps implanting a kinder consciousness would be more effective than forcing her to confront the bloody reality. Leo had made his decision. Leaving the academy, they walked hand in hand toward home. The old manor was much too far to walk to, but this was a dream, so who cared? What mattered was walking home with Tilly. A few minutes later, chatting and laughing, they arrived. A mature woman with a serious expression was engrossed in the alchemy set on Leo's workbench. Ms. Ursula, Leo greeted her with a smile. You seem quite curious about my little toys. Ursula turned, her gaze sweeping over Tilly and Leo before settling on their joined hands. Tilly's face flushed, and she subconsciously tried to pull her hand away, but Leo held it tight. She couldn't break free. Leo. Tilly was so embarrassed she was speechless. She had never been so affectionate with a boy in front of her teacher before. This Leo, honestly, Didn't he know her teacher was incredibly old-fashioned? Seeing that they weren't letting go, Ursula gave Leo a stern, appraising look. Leo just smiled naturally, letting her stare. Finally, Ursula let out a resigned laugh. You two kids, inseparable every day. She shot Tilly a reproving glance. You're so busy with your romance. You've nearly forgotten all about your teacher, haven't you? Did you forget why I came here? Of course not, Tilly said quickly. You're here to give a lecture at the academy and to assess the state of mages in New Haven. I'll take you on a tour of the city tomorrow. See that you do. Ursula then turned to Leo, her eyes filled with curiosity. How did you concoct these potions? Their effects are incredible. How did you do it? Oh, it's simple, Leo said, demonstrating at his alchemy bench. You do this, and then that. He shrugged, and there you have it. Oh, huh. Ursula watched, dazzled, and quickly pulled out a small notebook, her expression serious as she began taking notes. Watching Leo confidently and calmly guiding her teacher, Tilly's smile softened until her eyes practically glowed. Her teacher was always the one strictly educating others. She had never seen someone teach her like this. He truly was the one she had chosen. After his explanation, Leo left the workbench to Ursula, letting her experiment on her own. A woman who had dedicated her life to the arcane arts, Ursula was quickly lost in her research, her face alternating between confusion and excitement. Not wanting to disturb her, the young couple went downstairs to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Honestly, that teacher of mine, Tilly muttered as she prepped the ingredients. It's been so long since we've seen each other, and the first thing she does is bury herself in research. She's completely ignoring us. You're not much better, Leo teased. You spend every day with your nose in a book at the library. Even our dates are at the library, just off campus. Can't you spare a little of your research time for us? Dates? Tilly blinked. But aren't we together every day? Leo watched as she stopped working, her face scrunched in thought, completely oblivious to the water from the faucet splashing all over her clothes. He sighed with a smile, stepped forward to turn off the water, then found an apron and patiently tied it around her. You messy girl. As soon as you start thinking, you forget everything else. Don't you remember that time you almost got hit by a car crossing the street? Leo's hands wrapped around her slender waist as he carefully tied the apron. The intimate gesture brought their faces inches apart. Leo could see his own reflection in her violet eyes. Work is work, and life is life. If work starts taking over your life, you'll get tired, numb, and your mood will just get worse and worse. But my research is really important. I've been trying my best to make time for us. Tilly's voice was hesitant, her head lowering further. But if your brain is always tense and never gets a break, your research will become less and less efficient, Leo said, watching her shyly duck her head like a little ostrich burying its head in the sand. Oh, is that so? Tilly's voice was hesitant, her head lowering further. It is. Leo smiled, leaning closer. They were almost touching. Tilly, a good work-life balance is the most effective way to get things done. The warm breath on her ear made her skin tingle. A blush crept up her fair cheeks, and this time, even her small ears turned crimson. He was too close, far too close. The charged atmosphere was making her feel faint. Did it really take this long to tie an apron? Why hadn't he let go yet? But when the words reached her lips, there was no hint of reproach. Oh, is that right? Work-life balance. I understand. Nervous and flustered, she looked up and accidentally bumped her chin against his. Leo winced. Ouch! He let go. Oh, I'm so sorry, so sorry. Tilly immediately panicked. She cupped his face guiltily. Are you okay? I'm so sorry. I just forget everything when I'm thinking. Does it hurt? Leo chuckled. It doesn't hurt. With some distance between them, her brain could finally function properly again. Tilly considered what he had just said. If you say so, then I'll put my research aside tomorrow, and we can go on a date. Leo smiled. Where to? The library, of course. Tilly blurted out instinctively. When she saw his resigned smile, she quickly shook her head. No, not the library. We'll go. We'll go. Tilly's mind went blank. She racked her brain, but couldn't come up with a single good idea. Leo sighed and put a hand to his forehead. The witch's life was so limited that she couldn't even think of a place to go on a date. It was asking too much of her. He took her hand. Never mind, I'll plan it. Tilly's eyes lit up with anticipation. Leo rattled off a whole itinerary. First, we'll go to Master Ursula's lecture. Then, we'll leave the academy and head to the Royal Cove Grand Theater. I heard there's a traveling carnival with an exotic theme. We can also see New Haven's most famous magician, Bowden. They say he's going to cut his own head off. Tickets are almost sold out. Then, Leo paused to think. Then we'll go shopping. I remember this little pastry shop on the street. That's amazing. And when we get tired, we'll have dinner at the best restaurant in the East End. You can hear incredible musicians play, and the restaurant is on a hill with a perfect view of the entire New Haven skyline. There'll be fireworks, too. Isn't that romantic? Having said all that, Leo's throat was dry. He took a sip of juice from the kitchen counter. Tilly was stunned. She'd never imagined a date could involve so many different places. It was a real eye-opener. But as she thought about it, her brow furrowed. Romantic? Is it a carnival? That's just watching animals being abused, and that so-called master magician. What's so interesting about such petty tricks? I can cut my own head off, too. Do you want to see? Leo choked, spraying juice everywhere. He stared at her, speechless. No, I don't want to see that. Leo shot her a weary look. Don't cut your head off for me. I want to see a magic show, not a live-action horror movie. Oh, Tilly nodded blankly. Fine, if you don't want to see it. She then reconsidered his date plans. But I don't see what's so fun about listening to music or looking at the skyline. We can see New Haven's skyline every day. I've lived here so long, I'm sick of it. A helpless, bitter smile crossed Leo's face. What a hopelessly logical girl. Not an ounce of romantic sensibility. He felt a wave of defeat, but he was still going to take her. It was one thing for her to say that, but what value did the opinion of someone who had never experienced it hold? Wasn't it romantic to be with the person you love, experiencing new things and discovering joys you've never felt before? Tilly didn't get it, but Leo did. Last time, he had shown her the cruelty of the world. This time, he was determined to make her cherish the beauty she possessed. And most importantly, he would be there with her. Every moment they spent together would be etched into her heart, becoming beautiful memories she could never forget. Seeing Leo so excited and eager, Tilly, though not particularly intrigued, couldn't help but feel a flicker of anticipation. She smiled sweetly. Then I'll leave my tomorrow in your hands. Leo took her hand. Don't worry, I won't let you down, especially since I worked so hard to pry you away from your research. Looking at him, Tilly felt a warmth she couldn't quite name. She noticed a juice stain on his shirt, and her brow furrowed slightly. And you call me messy. Look at you. You've gotten yourself dirty. She tied an apron on him, too. Huh, I already have one, don't I? Leo looked down at the apron Tilly was fastening over his own. Oomph. Tilly's face was red. Mind your own business. She proceeded to tie it, but did so very, very slowly. Oh. Leo looked at his double-layered apron and shook his head helplessly. It's kind of hot. Tilly lowered her head, a sly smile on her face. I just wanted to hug you, that's all. The next day in New Haven, a few scattered snowflakes began to fall. The new year was approaching, and every shop was decorated with balloons and ribbons. Airships high above trailed massive red banners advertising the city's largest merchants. Every few blocks, nuns with smiling faces offered blessings to passersby. In the park, couples exchanged carefully chosen gifts, their happy laughter echoing through the air. The entire city was filled with a sense of joy. Leo and Tilly walked hand in hand down the street. In reality, it was almost summer in New Haven. The new year was months away. But who cared? Leo wanted to create an unparalleled, perfect date for Tilly, and the festive atmosphere of the holidays was as romantic as it got. Tilly's eyes sparkled as she watched the snow drift down. She held out her palm to catch a flake, which quickly melted, leaving a damp spot. You know, I actually prefer New Haven's distinct seasons over the eternal spring of the South, Tilly said with a happy smile. I can't believe it suddenly started snowing. It's wonderful. Leo smiled and pulled her hat down snugly. Bundled up in her winter clothes, Tilly looked like an adorable white snowball. Do you like the snow? He asked. Tilly gazed at the falling flakes and nodded excitedly. Snow is the solid precipitation formed from the condensation of water vapor in the sky. It possesses an exquisite and mysterious hexagonal crystalline symmetric structure. It is both a tangible manifestation of a chaotic system, like meteorology, and a reflection of the transfer of light and heat energy, symbolizing the universal interconnectedness of all things. She happily held up her palm with the melted snowflake. I love things like this. They allow me to feel the patterns and laws of the universe, to glimpse the location of the world's truth. Leo froze. He stared blankly at the snow. How come he couldn't glean any of that from it? How could he not come up with lines that were so profound and impressive? As a simple man, all Leo could think to say was, holy shit, it's snowing. It's so fucking pretty. So, Leo looked at Tilly silently. Was this the difference between an academic ace and a regular guy? The gap in perspective was chasmic. Leo took Tilly's hand and led her back to the academy. Master Ursula was giving a lecture that morning. Sorcery, magic, and their intimate connection to the world. In the timeline of this meticulously crafted dreamlands, no tragedies had yet occurred. Leo hadn't left 4 years ago, Tilly hadn't gone mad searching for him, and her teacher hadn't opened that gate. Everything was unbelievably perfect. Not only had Ursula not succumbed to madness, but due to her relationship with the old headmaster, she had been invited to Blackwood to lecture on occult studies. When the two of them arrived at the tiered lecture hall, they found it packed with students. People were even spilling out into the hallway. After squeezing their way in, they found the lecture was already half over. The atmosphere was heated. It looked like a fight was about to break out. A real fight. The methods for casting the spells you describe are far too demanding, and their energy conversion efficiency is low. I see no need for such things to be widely promoted, said Danton, the current headmaster of Blackwood Academy. Though he was old, his voice boomed with energy. No need. Ursula wasn't angry. She simply smiled and retorted, "Don't you know that magic is the mysticism in philosophy? It is inherently ineffable, difficult to comprehend. Only those with the highest aptitude can perceive its true essence. But once understood, our frail human bodies can leverage it to work miracles. In your short life, have you ever witnessed truly powerful magic? If you had seen such world-shaking wonders, you would not be saying such things." The two went back and forth, their words like dueling blades. The tension in the lecture hall crackled, and the students seemed eager to see them come to blows. An NPC gave up his seat, and Leo pulled Tilly down beside him. She was instantly engrossed. Leo watched her for a moment before turning his attention back to the verbal sparring on the stage. Though the two figures in the Dreamlands were fake, their words were real. The Magitech-focused academy was hostile to mages, and the headmaster had said similar things in public more than once. As for Ursula's words, he'd read them in her journal. This was all a performance for Tilly's benefit. His objective was made clear in Headmaster Danton's next statement. The clash between the headmaster and Ursula brought the lecture's atmosphere to a freezing point. Danton looked at Ursula with a cold smile and laid out his argument. "I admit that some of you mages are quite powerful, but times have changed. People no longer need the guidance of mages to live well. In fact, they live better." Danton proudly gestured to a Magitech steam boiler developed by the Academy. As the Ethereum crystal within it flared, the steam engine roared to life with boundless power. "I was a student of the great Master Gould, and I have dedicated my life to bringing the convenience of magic to every household, so that all may enjoy it equally." He posed a question to Ursula, a smug grin on his face. "Tell me, how many of your mages would have to work day and night to replace this single machine? Can you produce steel and cannons? Can you ensure that every one of my students can take a carriage to school? You can't, can you?" He scoffed. "Those with aptitude are 1 in 10,000. What waves can your handful of mages possibly make? The magical power you pride yourselves on is mass-produced and cheap here. So give up." Danton laughed. "Stop trying to revive your so-called Magus Imperium, and stop your wishful thinking that you are the saviors of the world. The Wigner of today is far stronger and more prosperous than the Magus Imperium ever was. Mages should have exited the stage of history long ago. Just let the Magus Imperium rest quietly in its grave. If you stay out of trouble, we might even remember it fondly. Otherwise," Danton's eyes darkened. "No one will like you. You will never integrate into the world. You will always be outsiders." Ursula was stunned. Tilly was stunned, too. The former's expression was an act, crafted by Leo, but the latter's was genuine. Sometimes, hearing harsh truth from the mouth of another was more effective, especially when her own teacher, Ursula, was rendered speechless, completely unable to find a rebuttal. Tilly carried a heavy burden, but it was time for her to set it down. After they left the lecture hall, snowflakes were drifting everywhere, blanketing the world in a layer of white. Tilly was lost in thought. Leo took her hand, pretending to be curious. "What's wrong? What are you thinking about?" Tilly looked up, her violet eyes shimmering with a complex mix of emotions. "That debate earlier. My teacher, she actually lost." Even though Ursula had later demonstrated an array of spells that had left the students dumbfounded, she still couldn't answer Headmaster Danton's challenges. Tilly felt that the more her teacher tried to prove herself, the weaker her position became. She had never seen her teacher like this. Leo smiled and gently stroked her hair. "Magic and mages are indeed hard for this era to accept. Your teacher challenged Blackwood Academy single-handedly. I think she's already quite amazing. But what's the use of that? Tilly sighed. Her trip here is destined to be fruitless. So, you think Headmaster Danton had a point? Leo asked, a look of surprise on his face as he eagerly awaited her answer. Tilly stared at the falling snow and hesitated for a long moment. Then, she nodded softly. My teacher is actually a very stubborn person. She and the elders are always hoping that after solving the mage's curse, they can restore the former glory of mages, allowing us to walk openly in the world, and even revive the Magus Imperium. But I always felt that reviving that old empire wouldn't be a good thing. Tilly thought of the Order of Magical Arcanists' past actions and looked at Leo with sadness in her eyes. Those people killed so many innocents in the name of a noble cause. My teacher always makes it sound so righteous, but I don't think she's much different from a cult leader. In my eyes, the Order isn't that different from the evil sorcerer cabals the church talks about. After saying this, Tilly sighed, her lips forming a small pout. Leo smiled and gently poked her cheek. At least she was clear-headed and rather cute about this. Stop it, Tilly pushed his hand away and looked at him seriously. Do you think we mages shouldn't exist anymore? Leo continued his teasing, tracing the line of her cheek. Why would you think that? Her fair face was slightly chubby, and the cold had turned it a faint pink. Combined with her stubborn expression, it made him want to squish her cheeks. Faced with Leo's relentless hand, Tilly sighed in resignation and stopped resisting. She just waited stubbornly for his answer. Leo thought for a moment. I think that existence itself is justification. You all have been in this world for so long, back when humanity was still in its infancy and you were already trying to touch the truth. A group like that can't be easily erased, right? Tilly fell into thought. Leo pressed his advantage, playing with her delicate, small earlobe. It was soft and white, perfect for teasing. But this so-called magical aptitude, isn't it also a curse? Children are thrilled to find themselves favored by power, but they don't realize it comes at a price. They will all inevitably descend into madness. Tilly lowered her head with a sigh, completely unaware that she was now cradled in Leo's arms. Maybe he was right. Humanity no longer needs the guidance of mages to live well. It's just, is humanity truly ready to face the end of the world? Leo gently stroked her back in comfort. He was pleased she was thinking this way. Tilly was an outlier among mages. She didn't feel a sense of superiority from her status, nor did she care about the historical position of mages looking down on the masses. She actually agreed with Gould's philosophy. But Tilly was part of the Order. She had been indoctrinated by her mother-like teacher since childhood. Her worldview was already formed. Although she didn't believe she deserved power and status, she always had a savior complex. Many mages in the Order had this problem. Even though I kill people, even though I slaughter villages, I'm a good person. I'm fighting against the terrifying beings of the past. I'm a savior of the world. It was evident from Tilly's earlier obsessive words. She was always searching for a beautiful new world. Although it was a form of escapism, she genuinely connected herself with grand concepts like a new world. In other words, she truly believed the world needed her salvation, that she had that responsibility. To hate something, you must first have cared about it. So, she had once cared deeply about this world. As a point of contrast, Evelyn had no such concerns. Professor Evelyn lived a carefree life. What does the end of the world have to do with me? There's nothing more important than the new designer bags at the luxury boutiques. If there was, it was the next collection. Consumerism is a hell of a drug. The huge reward Leo got from City Hall was almost gone, thanks to her. His thoughts had drifted. Seeing Tilly lost in deep contemplation, Leo pulled her onto a park bench, settling her snowball-like form onto his lap. She was completely oblivious to the intimacy of the pose, or how close they were. When she was with Leo, the witch always let her guard down. Leo had a feeling that while she was thinking, he could do just about anything and she wouldn't notice. So, he decided to try something. As a result, Tilly's face instantly flushed crimson. Stop touching me. I'm trying to think. Honestly, she scrambled out of his lap in a huff and stood in the snow, glaring at him. Leo blinked innocently. You think your thoughts, I'll do my thing. Shameless. You jerk. You're infuriating. Tilly had no mind left for the problems of mages. She turned to leave in a fit of pique. Leo grabbed her arm. Facing the fuming witch, he dropped his roguish smile and adopted a serious, earnest expression. Humanity may not need the leadership and protection of mages anymore, but that doesn't mean they don't need mages at all. Tilly put aside her embarrassment and anger, her expression turning serious as well. Leo, what do you mean? Leo looked at her with exasperation. Why are all you mages so one-track-minded? Always jumping from one extreme to the other. Of course mages are useful. Science in this world is just getting started, but mysticism has accumulated thousands of years of knowledge. There are still many problems in the world that science can't solve. Isn't that your advantage? Tilly nodded slowly. That's true, but... No buts. Leo covered her mouth with his hand. Most of your order are relics from the age of the Magus Imperium. Because of that, you're all too proud. You take yourselves way too seriously. Leo pursed his lips. Besides, who says mages can't coexist with us? Doesn't King Charlton II have several royal mages in his court? With their protection, the princes and princesses have barely been sick a day in their lives. The old king should have died a decade ago, but they've kept him alive to this day. At the mention of the royal mages, a look of disdain crossed Tilly's face. Those royal lapdogs. I wouldn't be caught dead with them. Right. Leo looked at her amused. You're all so noble, so great. You're the saviors of humanity. Hearing his sarcasm, Tilly's face scrunched up. Leo gave another example. Fine, forget the royal mages. What about the family mages of the great houses, the Imperial Astrologer Society, the fortune-telling shops in New Haven, the battle mages attached to army units? You're still useful, incredibly useful. Why aren't those people being ostracized? Tilly was still dismissive. What's the point of doing those things? Leo was getting a little angry. Then you tell me, what is the point? Tilly put her hands on her hips, her tone matter-of-fact. Academically, to tirelessly study the arcane mysteries until we touch the truth. Practically, to transform society and create a better world. A shiver went down Leo's spine. He looked at the proud, confident witch. She was still adorable, but she had unconsciously said something that terrified him. Seeing that she was about to launch into her old speech about the new world, Leo grabbed her hand and started dragging her away from the academy. Hey, Tilly cried out. I'm not finished. Where are you taking me? Leo glanced back at her, annoyed. On a date. Oh, Tilly grumbled. But I really wasn't finished. Less talking, or I'll shut you up. Even if you shut me up, I'll still say, with my mouth. At that, the witch finally fell silent. Next, Leo took Tilly on a tour of the city streets. They ate lots of sweets that girls loved. He took her to the carnival, and they even saw the magician's head-chopping performance. Of course, Tilly wasn't exactly well-behaved during the show. Leo didn't know how he managed to hold her back and stop her from rushing the stage to expose the whole thing. You almost ruined the show back there, Leo said, shooting her a sideways glance as they walked. Tilly still couldn't understand why anyone would want to watch such deceitful nonsense. She pouted, a look of defiance on her face. He didn't really cut his head off. I just wanted to go up and help him. Leo's eyes widened in disbelief. It's a magic show. It's just a performance. He felt it was absolutely necessary to correct this absurd notion. That magician was a real person in New Haven, and he was afraid that the next time Tilly saw the man, she might actually go up and twist his head off. That would be a disaster. Tilly snorted. I thought he was an anomaly or knew some amazing dark magic. Turns out he's a fraud, just like you. Leo protested. How am I a fraud? Tilly squinted at him. You said you were taking me to see a show, but as soon as the lights went down, your hands started wandering all over the place, and you even touched my... Leo blinked. Touched your what? Tilly's entire face went red. You have the nerve to ask. Leo grinned. Go on, tell me. What did I touch? Tilly pinched his side and turned away, refusing to speak to him. Leo laughed and wrapped his arm around the fuming Tilly. But we're on a date, aren't we? Isn't this what happens on dates? Tilly suddenly turned to him, a look of confusion in her eyes. Really? Leo said with a straight face. Trust me. For this date, I specifically consulted a large number of textbooks. They all say that appropriate physical contact is beneficial for strengthening relationships and promoting physical and mental well-being. Tilly looked at him with innocent eyes. She had no experience in this area, so she had no idea he was talking nonsense. So there's so much to dating. It's a very interesting field of study. Of course, Leo said without a hint of a blush. There is no end to learning. You still have much to learn. Tilly nodded blankly. Leo took her hand and started walking toward the restaurant. So, I can touch you wherever I want now, right? No. Still no. In the afternoon, the snow began to fall harder, blanketing all of New Haven in a holy white. Before they headed to the restaurant, a small incident occurred. Leo had planned to take Tilly for a walk through the industrial district to let her experience New Haven's magnificent magitech industry. But when they took a shortcut through a dim alley, a few rough-looking characters suddenly appeared at both ends. Leo frowned at them. From their appearance, their demeanor, and the weapons in their hands. They fit the description of street thugs perfectly. He wasn't afraid of them, just confused. He hadn't planned this part of the script. Leo. Tilly tugged on his arm, looking curiously at the approaching goons. Are they trying to mug us? Looks like it, Leo nodded. He'd almost forgotten. He couldn't construct a world with the same immense detail as Ophelia could. So many parts were left to improvisation. He hadn't expected to so accurately replicate New Haven's terrible crime rate. Tilly looked at him seriously. Should we call the police? Or just kill them privately? For the witch, getting mugged was an almost impossible event. She was a little flustered, unsure how to handle it without causing trouble for Leo. Leo smiled, weighing his cane in his hand. Anyone who interrupts our date gets a beating first, questions later. He was surprised to find a perfect opportunity to use his bartitsu. Oh, Tilly nodded, seeing one of the thugs raise a gun. She casually cast a marionette hex. It was Leo's show. In half a minute, he used his cane to take down the outnumbered thugs. Afterward, Leo leaned coolly on his cane and looked back at the witch. Pretty smooth, huh? Tilly's smile was a perfect crescent moon. She clapped appreciatively. Oh, my great hero. Your gentlemanly conduct has saved a helpless, innocent lady. Leo offered his arm, and Tilly looped hers through it with a grin. The gentleman and his lady walked elegantly out of the alley. The commotion had attracted the attention of nearby residents. When they saw the thugs lying on the ground, their tension eased. Leo was about to take Tilly to the restaurant when he found a crowd gathering around them. He instinctively tightened his grip on his cane, thinking they were hostile, but everyone was smiling warmly and gratefully. Young man, young lady, thank you so much. We're so grateful. Those damn thugs have been terrorizing this neighborhood for ages. We couldn't get rid of them. Now they've finally gotten what they deserved. What a relief. People thanked them profusely. Some street vendors offered gifts in gratitude, but since this was the Warrens, there were simple things like roasted sweet potatoes and warm bread. Leo politely declined each offer, his mind still on taking Tilly to the restaurant. Faced with such a scene, Tilly was at a loss. Having been hunted by the church for so long, and always seen as a criminal and a villain, she had never been so genuinely thanked by people. It was nothing. Tilly smiled awkwardly at the enthusiastic crowd. I didn't know it would help you all so much. It was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Such a pretty young lady, and so capable. Much better than those useless New Haven cops. Leo chuckled, thinking of Captain Raymond's. He continued to refuse their kindness, trying to guide Tilly through the crowd. Just then, a kind-faced old woman took Tilly's hand. It's so late. You two haven't eaten yet, have you? It's freezing out here. Come to my house and sit for a while. The old woman's hair was completely white, and she spoke with a slight tremble. Her kind eyes looked at them as if they were her own children, making Tilly feel too guilty to pull away. Those good-for-nothing boys of mine are all busy at the factories. Can you believe it? They can't even make it back on such an important day. The girls and I prepared a huge feast for nothing. If you two don't mind, please come and sit with us. It's always more lively with more people. No, that's all right. Tilly quickly refused. Come on, the old woman insisted. Tilly shot Leo a helpless look. Dealing with a nameless, eldritch monster was less challenging than dealing with this old woman. In the end, she hardened her heart and declined the invitation. The old woman's face fell, and her figure seemed to stoop even more. Tilly took Leo's hand, ready to leave. Let's go. Weren't we going to that restaurant? But suddenly, Leo hesitated. He actually gave it serious thought. If they left, they would enjoy the finest dining service in New Haven, with live music and a beautiful view of the city skyline. It sounded elegant and romantic. The old woman's home certainly couldn't offer that kind of date. So why was he hesitating? Maybe it was because, when he saw Tilly's flustered yet genuinely sincere smile just now, it made him think that this might be a good idea, too. With that thought, he immediately called out to the old woman who was just turning to leave. Ma'am, please, we'd love to come to your house. The old woman's eyes lit up, and she beamed with joy. Wonderful. I'll take you there right now. She took Leo's hand and enthusiastically led them toward a neighborhood of dilapidated, low-rise buildings. Tilly looked at Leo, her expression quizzical. Her eyes clearly asked, Aren't we going to the restaurant to see the skyline? Leo just smiled and shook his head. He had acted on a whim. This interesting, unexpected event had interrupted his carefully planned date. But then again, isn't that how life is sometimes? People always encounter unexpected changes. The more you try to stick to a plan, the more things can go awry. If this had happened in reality, Leo would have taken Tilly and left without a second thought. But this was his dreamlands, a world under his control. So why not just go with the flow? Maybe it would lead to an unexpected surprise. Guided by the old woman, Leo and Tilly arrived in a lively neighborhood adjacent to downtown. Since it was an important holiday, they could see families preparing New Year's dinner through the windows. Leo held Tilly's hand, chatting as they walked through the labyrinth of alleys. The noise of the neighborhood gradually drowned out their conversation. Tilly looked around curiously. The streets were bustling. Even with the snow, the massive steam pipes overhead provided enough cover for people to gather outside. A group of gamblers argued loudly over a loss. Someone was drunk and babbling incoherently. Little children were having a snowball fight, their faces alight with happy smiles. Puffs of steam rose into the air, which was thick with the aroma of food. Some street vendors were still open, their late-night snacks intended for the workers coming off a night shift. Tilly watched the lively scene, her beautiful violet eyes distant. Leo's gaze, however, was only on her. The warm light from the frosted windows fell on her face, casting a rare, gentle glow on the usually aloof witch. This quiet, observant witch was much cuter than her real, obsessive self. If only she could always be like this. Leo shook his head, took her hand, and continued to follow the old woman. Seeing Tilly's silence, the old woman thought she disliked the place. "I'm sorry, young lady," she said apologetically. "It's a bit messy around here. Not like where you young masters and misses live. But don't you worry, my house is always kept clean. There are no strange smells inside." Tilly quickly waved her hands. "It's all right, ma'am. I don't mind at all." It wasn't that she looked down on the old woman's living conditions. When she was on the run from the church, she had stayed in far worse places. She was simply observing the lives of the people here, a habit of hers. "We're not any young master or miss, ma'am," Leo said with a smile. "We're just kids from ordinary families, ordinary people. I'm really looking forward to your New Year's feast." The old woman finally relaxed, a kind smile on her face. That's good, that's good. You kids must be hungry. Let's hurry. I need to get things ready for you." "You bet." Leo kept pace. Tilly linked her arm through his, a teasing look on her face. "Why do you always say you're an ordinary person? There's nothing ordinary about you." "Am I not?" Leo smiled. "Look, I'm not an anomaly. I have no magical aptitude. I've just read a few random books. In your eyes, aren't I just an ordinary person?" "A person's nobility isn't determined by their power," Tilly said. In this, she was completely different from the order which valued bloodlines and heritage. Otherwise, she wouldn't have sided with Gould's philosophy over her teachers. Besides, in her heart, Leo was anything but ordinary. He was a very special, hard-to-describe being. "So, are you complimenting me?" Leo asked with an exaggerated expression. The brilliant Miss Tilly knows how to give a compliment, after all. "Oh, stop it," Tilly rolled her eyes. "When have I not complimented you?" Leo's smile faded. "You really haven't. Not only have you never complimented me, you're always calling me dumb." Tilly thought about it and realized he was right. Her face scrunched up. Was it her fault? His coursework at the academy was as simple as a child's workbook to her. To this day, she couldn't figure out what those fools at Blackwood were busy with all day. And some of them still failed. In the order, they wouldn't survive 2 days. Seeing Leo's unhappy expression, Tilly asked softly, hesitantly, "Should I compliment you more in the future?" Leo pursed his lips. "If it's not from the heart, then forget it." Tilly chuckled and reached up to pat his head, but found she couldn't quite reach. "I mean it. Don't be angry." Leo glanced at her. "Then tell me, what other good qualities do I have?" Under his expectant gaze, Tilly's large, round eyes darted around. "Well," she said with a mischievous grin, "you're handsome." Leo accepted it without a trace of modesty. "That's merely one of my most insignificant virtues." Tilly suddenly realized that his thick skin was another one of his virtues. "What else?" Leo wasn't letting her off the hook. Let me think. Tilly looked up at the beautiful, snow-filled sky. She nodded. "You're not just handsome, you're also very good at charming girls. Otherwise, how would you plan today's date? How could I have ever come up with so many romantic ideas?" At this, Tilly paused. She looked at Leo with a flicker of confusion, as if realizing something wasn't quite right. "Wait." She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "How do you know so many dating tricks? Why are you so experienced in this?" Leo froze. Suddenly, he felt the dreamlands tremble slightly. Oh no, Tilly's suspicion could cause the world to collapse. He cursed himself internally. Of all the things to bring up, why did he have to ask that? But thankfully, at that critical moment, the old woman interrupted their chat. "We're finally home. Come on in." Leo quickly clutched his stomach. "Ma'am, you're a lifesaver." The old woman turned, looking at him with amusement. You must be really hungry. Come, come. Young lady, what are you waiting for? Get inside. Oh. Tilly gave Leo another suspicious look before obediently following the old woman into the house. The world stopped shaking. Leo let out a silent sigh of relief. Following the old woman into her home, Leo noticed the place was small but packed with people. 3 middle-aged women were preparing food, surrounded by 5 chattering children. They all looked up curiously at the sight of the 2 strangers. The old woman introduced Leo and Tilly, recounting their heroic deed of dealing with a neighborhood gang. The children's eyes lit up, and they eagerly swarmed the pair. Big brother, did you beat up all the bad guys? That's so cool. Are you an ascendant, big brother? My dad said there are lots of ascendants in the city who protect us in secret. They're super strong and awesome. Leo smiled and ruffled the little boy's hair, thinking to himself that for every ascendant protecting the city, there were probably even more causing chaos. I'm not an ascendant, but this big sister is. He shifted his gaze to Tilly, who immediately looked flustered. The children excitedly surrounded Tilly. Big sister is an ascendant. What kind of powers do you have? Can you transform? Can you teach me? I want to be a hero who protects the city too. Tilly's face was a mask of helplessness. She was truly terrible at handling children. Besides, what was she supposed to tell them? She wasn't some hero protecting the city. She was a wanted criminal, an evil witch who endangered human society. Not only did she not protect this place, she had wanted to destroy it several times. This sister can't transform, but she can do amazing magic, Leo explained with a smile. Wow! The children's eyes widened in amazement. In the education of the general public, magic and sorcery were 2 different things. A magician was not the same as an evil-sounding sorcerer, but those in the know understood they were one and the same. The distinction was a deliberate propaganda tool by the empire and the church. Anything that could be used in magitech industry was good, that was magic. Anything not controlled by official ascendant organizations was bad, that was sorcery. Thus, even an orthodox mage organization like the Order of Magical Arcanists, a relic from the age of the Magus Imperium, was considered a cabal of dark sorcerers. If they showed their faces in the empire, they would be hunted down and annihilated. After getting acquainted, the atmosphere in the room grew livelier. Hearing that Leo and Tilly would be spending the new year with them, the 3 women were delighted and worked even more diligently. Their husbands couldn't make it home, and a specially prepared dinner like this was always better with more people. The old woman watched the mischievous children with a smile. The kids had no intention of letting Tilly go, pestering her about her magic. Sister, what kind of magic can you do? Please, sister, just show us a little. I heard the Emperor's royal mages can create beautiful fireworks in the sky. Can you do that? Well, Tilly looked at Leo pleadingly. She couldn't just show off her magic to anyone. And what could she even show them? Her spells could kill swathes of people at a time. The children would be scared to tears, seeing that Leo had no intention of helping. In fact, he looked like he was enjoying her predicament. Tilly's face scrunched up in frustration. She was really starting to dislike children. Leo couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of the witch trapped by a swarm of kids. She looked like she was in social anxiety hell, a pitiful sight to behold. He decided to help her out. An idea came to him. Suddenly, the warm light in the house flickered and then died, plunging the room into darkness. The women gasped. Did the gas lamp break? Didn't we just refill the kerosene today? Why is it out again? Don't worry, Leo reassured them. There'll be light in a second. In the dark, he squeezed Tilly's hand. This was her cue. In the darkness, Tilly sighed in resignation. I swear I can't with you. A moment later, a bright orb of light bloomed in the pitch-black room. The family stared in amazement at the source. Tilly was casting a basic circle one-light spell. Under her masterful control, the orb floated up to the ceiling, replacing the room's original lighting. Leo stroked his chin, still not satisfied. The light is too cold. This is a New Year's dinner. Can you change it to a warmer tone? Tilly shot him an annoyed glare but complied. With a slight wave of her hand, the cool blue light turned into a warm, yellowish glow, like an incandescent bulb. Happy now? Tilly turned to him. Leo nodded. Much better. The children chattered excitedly, having never seen anything so magical. Magician's sister, you're amazing. Can I learn that? If I knew magic, my family wouldn't have to worry about money for kerosene anymore. Faced with the children's sparkling eyes, Tilly gave a wry smile and shook her head. Magic is not a beautiful thing. It brings madness and destruction. She patiently warned the children, and magicians are not good people. If you see someone who could do magic, don't go near them. You must stay far, far away. A little boy looked up at her, confused. But aren't you a good person, sister? You beat the bad guys and lit up our home. Why would you say magicians aren't good people? A little girl immediately nodded. Yeah, sister is a magician, and sister is a good person. We won't stay far away from you. Hearing their innocent words, Tilly's lips parted. She wanted to argue, but she didn't know what to say. Am I a good person? Tilly smiled bitterly. How could that be? She was just a hated, unaccepted, evil witch. She was part of the order of magical arcanists. She had seen how they treated humans since she was a child. Even if she didn't like it, she was complicit in many of their actions. Tilly's eyes flickered, and she fell silent. The children didn't know what was wrong with the pretty sister. One moment she was fine, the next she was like this. Big brother, big brother. A little girl tugged on Leo's hand and asked worriedly, What's wrong with sister? Leo shook his head, silently complaining. She's having an episode of her intermittent existential dread coupled with her self-sabotaging personality disorder. There's no cure. Despite his inner snark, Leo gently took Tilly's hand. The witch turned to him, her face a knot of conflict. Leo flicked her forehead playfully. Thinking about all that nonsense again? Today's our date, and it's the new year. Can't you just be happy? Tilly rubbed her head and pouted. Oh, she didn't want to spoil the mood, so she forced a smile. All right, I'll stop thinking about it. When can we eat? One of the women in the kitchen called out soon. Just a little longer. The children's curiosity was fleeting. They soon ran to their mothers, their eyes fixed on the food that was about to be served. Only Leo and Tilly were left in the living room. Although her expression had calmed, Leo knew she was still thinking about what had happened. The witch was fundamentally a kind person, but tragically, she belonged to this most wanted dark sorcerer organization. It would have been better if she had been assimilated, but even more tragically, she had held on to her true self all these years. Leo looked at her steadily. You can't choose where you come from, but you can choose your life. Her violet eyes met his. Are you saying I should leave the order? Leo shrugged. I didn't say that. The choice is yours. Some things couldn't be persuaded. She would have to figure out for herself. The Tilly in this dreamland hadn't experienced the life, death, and despair of her real self, so she still had a touch of innocence. The real her was a different story. The last time he reloaded, she had killed 2 elders and all her fellow mages without batting an eye. The order isn't something you can just leave, Tilly said with a small smile. First of all, my teacher would never agree. Do you have any idea how powerful she is? Secondly, those guys in the Council of Elders would definitely hunt me down. Don't worry about that, Leo said with a nonchalant wave. Your teacher is already long dead, anyway. Tilly looked at him, confused. As they sat in silence, the women began bringing out dishes. Dinner's ready, dinner's ready. Yay! The children excitedly hopped onto their chairs. The family didn't have a dining room, so all 9 of them squeezed into the small living room to eat. The old woman had Leo and Tilly sit in the empty chairs of her absent sons. After a devout prayer, the lively New Year's feast officially began. Leo looked at the steaming dishes on the table. Pumpkin pie, sausages, stewed beans, smoked bacon, roasted potatoes, and a pot of yellowish mush he couldn't identify. They were all very common, ordinary ingredients. The most presentable dish was the roasted turkey in the center, though it was tiny, like a dwarf turkey. Although the old woman had kept calling it a New Year's feast she had spent a long time preparing, building up his expectations, the meal was far from a feast. But he wasn't disappointed. This was the best this family could offer for the holiday. Leo smiled and served Tilly a piece of carved turkey, piling other food onto her plate. Leo, I can't eat all this. Tilly looked up helplessly. Eat up, it'll help you grow, Leo said casually. What do I need to grow? She asked, mystified. Leo's eyes flickered down to her chest for a fraction of a second before darting away. Well, there's something there, but just a little. Better than Helena, at least. She was second to last. Tilly, of course, knew exactly where he had been looking. She froze for a moment, and then her entire face rapidly turned bright red. Pervert, she hissed, pinching his thigh under the table. Leo easily caught her hand. In the future, he whispered in her ear, if you learn any life magic that can reshape the body, remember to make yourself a little bigger. What life magic? Tilly looked up, confused. You'll understand later, Leo winked. Remember, okay? A little bigger. I'm not greedy, just a little bit will do. You rogue. What on earth are you talking about? Tilly covered her ears, completely mortified. She wanted nothing more to do with him. Though they didn't know what the two were talking about, the couple's playful bickering made the other women smile knowingly. The old woman looked from Leo to a blushing Tilly and chuckled kindly. It's good to be young. My old man and I were just like you back in the day, always stuck together. You couldn't pull us apart. Leo's gaze drifted to a photo frame on a cabinet. It was a picture of the old woman's family. He could see her sons who hadn't come home for the holiday, and her husband. The moment he saw the photo, something clicked. The lively dinner continued. The old woman told Tilly stories of when she and her husband were dating. In those days, there were no roaring, smoke-belching factories. Life was slower, and love was simple and beautiful. Tilly listened intently, occasionally covering her mouth in concern at the old woman's stories. The old woman's youth had certainly been difficult, but in the end, the lovers were united. If you find someone you love, don't ever let them go, and don't ever let them down. In times like these, finding someone to love and who loves you back is truly a rare thing. As she listened, Tilly subconsciously glanced over at Leo. He was lost in thought again, his attention completely elsewhere. Leo was listening, but the photograph had pulled his thoughts back to another time. He remembered that family photo. He had seen it in a newspaper. It was before he had gone to the coastal town, before he had been reunited with Tilly. The paper had reported on a family that had met with tragedy during the great riots in the downtown district. A family of more than a dozen, all killed in an out-of-control Ethereum crystal explosion. They were sacrifices, victims of the chaos summoned by a mastermind to call forth a dark god. Even compared to the other families who had suffered, this old woman's tragedy was so heartbreaking that it had earned a small corner in that day's paper. It was ironic. Leo had been on the front page. He looked silently at the kind old woman holding Tilly's hand, treating her like her own granddaughter. No wonder they felt so real, so full of emotion and history. This family had actually existed. Leo snapped out his reverie to see Tilly giving him a desperate look. The old woman had turned into the spitting image of every meddling aunt at a family gathering. So, when are you two planning to get married? The other women chimed in. Yes. When are you getting married? Married? Leo and Tilly looked at each other. Tilly's expression was blank. She had never even considered it. Such ordinary, human things seemed so distant from her world. Besides, she still had so many ambitions, and her research had yet to bear fruit. Seeing Tilly's confusion, the old woman said, You don't have a plan at all, do you? That won't do. She leaned in and whispered conspiratorially in Tilly's ear. Let me tell you, when you find a good man, you have to lock him down. If someone else snatches him away, you'll regret it forever. Tilly's eyes widened. Is that how it works? The old woman was deadly serious. Of course it is. This young man is quite handsome. He must have a lot of admirers, right? Tilly blinked. I suppose so. See what I mean? The old woman glanced at Leo, then quickly started advising Tilly. He seems like a good man, but he has the look of a player. You have to be careful. You need to keep him on a tight leash. Leo's eyebrow twitched. What kind of leash? Tilly nodded, only half understanding. Don't worry, ma'am. I'll be sure to leash him. Leo's brow furrowed. He suddenly had the feeling that he, the master of this dream, had just been screwed over by his own subconscious. Amid the lively atmosphere, the New Year's dinner drew to a close. They could all hear the New Year's bells ringing from the Tower Bridge in the East End. The bells marked the beginning of another year. The warm room filled with blessings as children wished their elders well, and the elders returned the good wishes. The old woman knew her guests wouldn't stay the night and would be leaving soon. She looked at Tilly kindly. I don't know why, but I feel such a connection with you, a child your age. Before you go, let this old woman give you a blessing. Tilly's eyes shone, and she nodded with a smile. I'm not one for fancy words, the old woman said softly. So, I wish that you will achieve your heart's desire, and that all your hard work will be rewarded. Tilly beamed. Thank you, ma'am. As a researcher, that was perhaps the best blessing she could have received. The old woman then looked at Leo. And you, young man, you better hurry up. I truly hope to see the day you two get married. You must invite this old woman to see it. Leo looked at her expectant face, a pang of sadness in his heart. The old woman would never see it because she was already gone. But he still replied, We will, ma'am. I promise. Though they were just illusions, the emotions in this moment were real. The old woman finally smiled, satisfied. After bidding the family farewell, Leo and Tilly walked home on the snow-covered streets. Leo kept glancing at her. Though she was quiet, it was clear she was in high spirits, a faint smile constantly playing on her lips. A day so ordinary yet so happy was something she had probably never experienced before. Leo squeezed her hand and smiled. This world, it's not as bad as you thought, is it? He watched her nervously after he spoke. Tilly nodded, her smile bright. No, it's not. Leo let out a breath of relief. It's true that you only appreciate what you have when it's gone. But before she could lose it, he had to let her have it first. Everything was moving in the right direction. The next step was to figure out how to wake her up. Time flowed on in the dreamlands. Leo and Tilly lived a quiet, peaceful life in the old manor. Winter turned to summer, and summer back to winter. Time was a powerful force. Ursula gradually came to accept some of the concepts of Magitech, and Tilly began to set aside time from her research for life, seeming to discover some of its simple joys. Leo looked toward the kitchen. Tilly was patiently decorating a cake with cream. This was something that, in the past, she would have considered utterly meaningless. Now, she could sit quietly for hours doing it without feeling like she was wasting time. After placing the final decoration on the cake, a happy smile spread across her face. She beckoned for Leo to come and have a taste. Leo took a small bite and nodded. It's pretty good, just a little too sweet. Then, I'll use a little less sugar next time. Tilly pouted. But I really can't use any less, or the texture will be off. Leo didn't answer. He didn't care about that. A moment of silence passed. Tilly looked up, puzzled. Leo, what's wrong with you today? Leo looked at her, hesitating. Tilly. You? Tilly tilted her head. What about me? Leo took a deep breath and finally asked the question. Do you think you're happy? Tilly nodded without a moment's hesitation. Of course I am. She gave him a sweet smile. Every day here is full and happy. I'm very happy, extremely happy. Tilly is surrounded by happiness. Looking at her like this, Leo became even more certain of his plan. Unknowingly, Tilly had become immersed in the beautiful dream he had crafted for her. She had fallen in love with this place. He smiled along with her. That's good, that's good. If she was happy then, he could wake her up without mercy. For the current Tilly, this would undoubtedly be a cruel act. This place was a beautiful utopia. There was none of the backstabbing from the order, no research destined to be meaningless. There was no gate, no truth, no Ursula reduced to a pile of mangled flesh, and no Leo, who had been gone for 4 years. But Leo knew she had to face it eventually. A fake was a fake. It could never replace the real thing. Even if Tilly loved it here, Leo had no right to bind her to the dreamlands forever. So, Leo decided to tell her the truth. On another snowy day, he took her hand and led her to a movie theater. Movies existed in this era, but Tilly had never seen a theater so grand and ornate, like a grand opera house. She looked around curiously. Leo, why are we here? What did you want to tell me? She had never seen him so serious. Tilly held his hand tightly. She was starting to get scared. Don't be nervous. Leo led her to a seat, and they sat down together, looking at the giant silver screen. There's something I should have told you a long time ago. He squeezed her hand, hoping to give her some sense of security. I hope that no matter what you see next, you remember. You still have me. I'll always be by your side. A sense of foreboding crept over Tilly. She had a feeling that once she watched this, all her happiness would vanish. She was starting to regret it. No, I don't want to watch. Leo, take me home. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Leo gripped her wrist tightly, his expression impassive, just like last time. He couldn't afford to be soft now. The movie screen flickered to life. Leo forced her to watch, making her witness all the scenes she didn't want to see again. Her own death in the white laboratory from the soul extraction. The red, dead planet. And Leo's home, that terrifying, hellish battlefield. Finally, her teacher, Ursula's last word. Disappointed. As the images shifted, Tilly's emotional state grew more and more volatile. Her eyes widened in disbelief, moving from suspicion to shock, until finally, she fell completely silent. No one would want to accept such a reality, especially for Tilly, for whom the contrast was so stark. 1 second she was in heaven, the next in hell, and then to be told that heaven was a lie, but hell was where she would have to live from now on. Leo watched her anxiously, afraid she would self-destruct from being unable to accept it, just like last time. Tilly's face was pale as she sank into a long silence. Finally, she looked up, her expression lost, and threw herself into Leo's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Leo actually felt a sense of relief. Someone who had lost the will to live wouldn't cry like that. Leo, it was a dream. It was really a dream. The slender body in his arms trembled, and the world trembled with her. Leo gently patted her back, trying to give her strength. I thought I had really achieved my dream, she wailed. But it was all fake. I didn't accomplish anything. Leo comforted her, putting on a smile like he was soothing a child. Who says dreams don't count? Can't we think of it as a dress rehearsal for the future? Tilly looked up, her sobs catching her throat. Dress rehearsal for the future. How was that possible? You big liar. How could such a beautiful dream ever become reality? I think it can, Leo said, his gaze and tone firm. Except for the fact that the dead can't be brought back to life. Everything can be changed. Tilly's eyes were unfocused. She lowered her head silently. It's not that simple. Leo smiled, knowing her stubborn nature, and didn't press the issue. Instead, he asked suddenly, when did you figure it out? To keep Tilly from getting suspicious, Leo's control over the dreamlands had become more and more precise, the scope of it ever expanding. But it seemed she had known for a while. I don't know. Tilly shook her head dazedly. Maybe I had the idea a long time ago. My teacher isn't someone who can be so easily changed. Leo, you still underestimate her. Leo understood. It was because of Ursula, but there was nothing he could do about it. He had barely interacted with her. Simulating her to this extent was the best he could manage. What was interesting was that even though Tilly had her suspicions, she had chosen not to wake up. Unlike him, she was willing to indulge in a beautiful falsehood. Tilly gave a bitter laugh. Leo, is this a new power of yours? It's truly amazing. You can create a dreamscape like this, just like the beautiful world I dreamed of. But why did you wake me up? Wouldn't it have been better to let me stay? Her voice was a plea. I really don't want to wake up from such a beautiful dream.